I mean,
hey,
what are we missing now? We're lacking
This
nothing.
event's had everything. We got augmented reality, we got an engagement, we got North America on the final day. I mean, hey, this was pretty good.
This Championship Sunday has absolutely delivered, folks, but there's still one final treat that awaits us. Last time these two teams went head-to-head, of course, was in the Stage 1 finals over in Asia. It's Falcons with a run back from that lower bracket to handle Crazy Raccoon in 6 maps. Of course, as the top seed here, Falcons do have the privilege of selecting the battleground, and we're going to get a rare Oasis map to start us off with a Protect ban, most likely here.
Yeah, we'll see what they decide to do. Okay, so they get rid of the Orisa, and this is probably to protect some of the other heroes, right? Maybe there would have been a Maga ban here, potentially, because you think of Oasis, it's a map that we haven't seen really at all here.
No.
In this tournament, Maga is actually very strong.
I could genuinely be, trying to eliminate a problem for Maga, or at least something that Hanbin and co have identified as a bit of a challenge for them playing on this map. Legendary map, I think, for these two teams because it was the arena in which we saw Crazy Raccoon play Roadhog last year in Dallas, shocking everybody. Not to say that we're going to be heading back to that this time around, but again, curious to see already some of the strategies at play because for these two teams, it's different. 20 games between these two rosters.
Oh, it's insane.
A wealth of history, experience going up against one another, and a chance that either or both of these teams have saved something special for this match for all the marbles.
Which is why, Falcons has been so good, but for some reason, I just have the feeling here for Crazy Raccoon in the sense that, Shu has been on fire on this Ana. If the Maga is the kind of style that they want to go for on the other side, Crazy Raccoon can get good reads on that, potentially get good ban outs, and I think they could be able to kind of run away with it potentially.
What I was looking to touch on before we were interrupted in the best way possible is that Harbin sort of says we're a main tank team now, and I think what he's getting at there is that they've been happy to roll out the Winston and match these dive compositions when required. I think like the last time these two teams played, Gibraltar and Numbani were both in the pool, right?
Yes.
Two maps that really favor that kind of dive style. Things are a little bit different now. You could absolutely cater the battlefield to benefit more of these brawl comps. And I think even though Falcons say, Matt, that they can play that Winston style, I really think if they can, they want to drag the game down to a Malga matchup.
There's a difference between can and want, right? I think they can. Will they want to do that? Probably not. I think there are other strengths for this team they would opt to go to other than that style, and we really haven't seen them be forced by any team thus far to have to adopt that type of style.
But that's why I do think this is such a compelling game, because I don't think that either of these teams, but mostly Falcons, are the same roster as what we saw in that OWCS Stage 1 final in Asia. Once more, folks. Oh, buddy, it's going to be brilliant. Team Falcons and Crazy Raccoon, a matchup we've seen play out time and time again. We're heading over to Oasis to kick off this 1st to 4 series.
Obviously, a lot of time for teams to make changes before those spawn doors open. Also to point out, we talked about how Falcons using that Orisa ban to potentially protect like a Maga. On the other side, you did have the Genji get banned out there from Crazy Raccoon. So the Genji, a very strong hero in the hands of Proper.
All right, false start, folks. Little pause called here.
We got the crowd is going, the music was going.
Consider that rehearsal.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's getting warmed up. I'm certain that this crowd is going to be extremely loud, extremely involved in this. And let's, taking a look back, Falcons have definitely been tested, been pressured, right?
Yeah.
But I would say the team that has done that to the greatest degree, because these two teams have kind of dodged each other, right, is that once again roster.
Yes.
A really close game. And I'm sure the Falcons coming out of that are incensed that it was so close, but there are a lot of factors at play there. Home crowd, an incredibly aggressive dive-based team that is potentially still the antithesis to the way that Falcons want to play. Crazy Raccoon can be that team. The raw pace that they fought their way through the lower bracket with that incredible game from Shu, they do have what it takes to topple these Titans.
Falcons also drops a map to Alcatia, right, in the first round. So it's not like they've kind of just rolled through everybody with relative ease, right? Where Crazy Raccoon, you do have that slip up to Nightmare, as Nightmare actually put together a very strong event overall. But since that slip up, right, they rolled through VP, they rolled through once again, they rolled through Nightmare in a bit of a rematch there. And now they find themselves way back here into that grand final after a run back in the lower bracket.
It looks like Sparkle was the coach that called this brief pause here, and he seems to be indicating that all is well. Harmon, of course, with his signature tilted screen, trying to see into the 21st dimension, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be comfortable.
You know, for some players like those stranger setups, we've seen like tilted keyboards and stuff like that. It's been because of space restrictions where they normally play. I'm not so sure that like a tilted monitor sort of plays into that, and I'm sure this has been explored and maybe even been explained, but it is an odd, it's like he's trying to position the kill feed as far away from him as possible so he doesn't tunnel in on it. I'm not sure what the reason is, but
odd ones in Overwatch. Throwback to Jae-Hong used to put his on a box, right?
Yep.
He used to have his mouse pad on a box when he played. You know, you pine with the glass mouse pad early on. So we've had some interesting setups in the history of Overwatch Esports.
We had a whole saga about a gaming chair, I want to say, in Stockholm with Hanbin or something like that. I don't know. I believe we delved into the very deep annals of ergonomics and lumbar support on that occasion.
The crowd was so ready. You could hear the crowd ready to pop off, the music, everybody getting excited, the awesome opening ceremony. And then Sparkle's got to call that pause right at the rip. Does it look like potentially we're going to get actually a Maga head-to-head?
That is interesting, I guess, that Crazy Raccoon would opt into that, because if you go back to the last time these two teams played, we had a control map. It wasn't Oasis, but Crazy Raccoon banned the Diva, and then the very next map, Falcons banned the Winston. So at the time, the teams are like very different styles, and it created a really volatile matchup between these two, because if you remember, in that upper bracket, Falcons got knocked down in a 4-0. You know what I mean? Like, these two teams are always, every time we run it back, and this is good news for fans, I think, of these two teams, for fans of the game, it's always different. There's always something that defines the series. Meta's changed somewhat now, but I think, Falcons have had to adjust. And I know that
was like 3 thumbs up, so I think we're getting ready to go soon.
That's good. 3 thumbs up is a great sign. But Hanbin has had to, I think he's had to adapt. The kind of, we're talking about a literal champion, multiple times in the past, of course, even, quite recently, last year, but has had to sort of say, yeah, we don't need 2 tanks. We shouldn't need 2 tanks. I think the consensus coming into a lot of roster building this year was that you wanted to build with flexibility in the forefront of your mind, and that's something that Crazy Raccoon can offer in the same way that once again did with that second tank sort of rotating in, but Falcons just don't seem the need.
And I'm curious if we see Crazy Raccoon try and play that Maga in the head-to-head early on. And I think it would be such a confidence blow if they were to take the head-to-head in the Maga and Crazy Raccoon comes out on top. And then for Falcons, you're like, oh, where do we go now, right? You don't really have many great options. Yeah. And I know Crazy Raccoon also has that ball to fall back on, right? If you ever need it.
Right, I mean, and we're looking at Oasis, right? It's not unreasonable to expect that, but here we go, folks, once more. Pen to paper in the latest chapter of a rivalry that has defined competitive Overwatch for the better part of 2 years. It's Crazy Raccoon and Team Falcons renewing it right here in a best of 4, excuse me.
And we will get
best of 7.
Yeah, I mean, hey, the same thing. Doing that math real quick, it's the same exact thing. But we'll get a Maga head-to-head. Look, I think Maga's kind of the hero you have to play on this map, especially on this point, right? There aren't that many options. You can't exactly play that Winston, go up to the high ground, trying to dive into that Maga with that high ground advantage. Not the best spot to play from. So we'll see the Maga here in a head-to-head with Crazy Raccoon.
Prop's been perched up pretty safe. It is going to be a Far Ramiro, which is an exciting prospect indeed. Charge comes in, Harbin's able to deal with Shu at the very least, and somehow is going to be topped up. Chorong with a flyby is not able to get the extra damage to bring the Mauga to heal. So a great start here for Falcons, and now they can assume control of this high ground, give proper priority now as he can play up towards the skybox. It's a very good opener.
And with Falcons getting first map pick, you go to a map like Oasis to get this style of play, right? You also end up protecting the Maga, and then the Genji ban on the other side probably doesn't bother you that much, right? Because Proper can pick up that Fora as well.
All right, here's Stalker. Forced to drop to the low ground now, does see Junbin starting to encroach and respects the Mauga, so gives him a little bit of space. It's an about-face and charge backwards for Junbin, though, as Crazy Raccoon aren't quite ready to make a deep foray towards the point, and this is already accounted for 28% for Team Falcons. I talked about priority for Proper. He can sort of float over here and put that pressure down, but a kunai will take him out. Shu at least is able to find him, but both Faras here really on the chopping block early in this fight. But Falcons get teased out to the open and take a fight that doesn't favor them. It's 40% and counting, though. Stalker's done well, and with Harmon still standing, they can drag this out.
Yeah, but you do have Chorong and Shu still alive here for Crazy Raccoon. They're with Junbin, so that will be enough to flip the point. Also something to point out, Chorong's playing the Juno, so you have a difference in terms of the backline that these teams want to go with, right? The Kiri Lucio here for Falcons. Chio, one of the best Lucios in the world, but a little bit more firepower for Crazy Raccoon.
Double Kitsune Rush coming out, Stalker pops the overclock, Heesang just falls right into his waiting arms. Now it's going to be an orbital ray popped and the cage fight is deployed. Hanbin low, caught out, but Stalker release is going to find purchase here with that overclock. Junbin found two though. Nice cage thrown down for Crazy Raccoon, and he's sitting pretty back towards the point. A great opportunity for the Raccoons to even up the game. A stomp antenna for Stalker finds its mark. And he's brought down.
And even with the sound barrier there for Falcons, right? It's a cage fight from Junbin, but then they also have Chorong's orbital ray, right? So even though that Falcons, they find a kill early on into that, it's almost impossible to get rid of that Maga with the orbital ray rolling on top of him, the Kitsune Rush as well. And that allows Junbin to put down so much damage. He finds two. That results in a fight win for Crazy Raccoon.
Harmy looks to reposition here. Out towards the right. You'll notice Junbin there on the left is sort of pushing up. Crazy Raccoon really want to take this brawl.
And Chio will adjust to match, right? So ditching that Lucio, gonna go without like a true traditional support ultimate match with the Juno.
Great opener for Heesang, able to get rid of Stalker, but Harmon at least is able to trade it out. Lip backs up, cage fight going to be deployed here now for Falcons, and they make great use of it. Barrage here from Proper will be more than enough damage to deal with the bulky body of the Malga, and Chorong can only float around. This is tit for tat stuff, but Crazy Raccoon get to 77.
Yeah, it's the cage fight barrage there that happens for Falcons, so that allows them to move on in, take the point. And you know, we talked a lot about Lip this weekend, right, in terms of how he will fare head-to-head against some of these other Sojourns in the field. Overclock here with the Kitsune Rush, potential to open this one back up.
Proper has to be sort of aware of this. They're tracking Lip's ultimate now. He's got to be careful. A dive back for Junbin, but Lip gets on the point front and center, commanding the attention of the entirety of Team Falcons, and it's good damage on Hanbin, but Fielder and Chio have the healing throughput to keep Hanbin in the game. Big damage though, Hanbin struggles eventually. That front line buckles here for Team Falcons, and Crazy Raccoon flipped the point behind it. This is now getting a little desperate for Falcons, but Chio has finally built that orbital ray.
Well, the overclock buys so much space, right? It forces Falcons all the way back, and then when Falcons tries to rush back out onto the point, they walk right into Shu's Kitsune Rush. Now they're going to be walking into the orbital ray of Chorong.
Falcons have to set this up. Oh, that was the orbital ray of Chio now not available. What a pick for Lip. Exactly what you're looking for now. If you're Crazy Raccoon, they'll have an orbital ray of their own, and it seems like such an elementary cleanup process for them. Lip into the back line, takes note of Fielder's positioning, does throw down a Kitsune Rush, but it's going to take more than that to handle a Crazy Raccoon at full strength. Hanbin knows he's not long for this world as Crazy Raccoon with a cage fight seal the deal in the first round.
And that's brutal to lose Chio early on there, right? That's your orbital ray, so all you have to work with there is your Kitsune Rush. But when you drop that rush, what do? They just orbital ray right on through it, so you don't even really get much value at all from that Kitsune Rush. You never actually get Chio back in the fight to get that orbital ray off and get value out of it. Brutal way to lose there for Falcons.
Certainly felt like Falcons were playing catch-up. They make that pivot to the Juno midway through the round and then never have a chance to make use of that orbital ray. That Chio did build up. It's clear the Crazy Raccoon really wanted to, just push in and make use of that huge numbers advantage when they had that Juno ult.
This is what's bad for Falcons in the sense that, like, this is the style, except with maybe Proper on the Genji, right, that has been able to kind of carry them through the event thus far. And Crazy Raccoon's like, all right, bet we'll just match it and, like, think we can play it better, which, if they're able to do so, raised a lot of question about Falcons for the rest of the series.
It's a worrying sign that's already emerging early on in this first of 4 series. Here's Harmon again, just can't hang in the front line. Not able to manage his health pool adequately as the poke continues to come in from Heesang, Lip, and of course, Shu is getting involved. A very clean opening here for the Raccoons. Team Falcons now, they're pivoting over to the Diva.
And we'll see, I know this is if they're able to kind of keep that Diva alive, right? You're going to be able to eat up a lot of, with the defense matrix, some of that Pharah poke, right? So should be a little bit better in terms of trying to deal with Heesang putting down that damage at range, but look to see Crazy Raccoon get even more aggressive.
It's still absurd levels of poke, man. I mean, not just between the Sojourn and Pharah, but also Junbin is going to chew through that defense matrix pretty quickly. Hanbin can't stick around in the front line for nearly as long as Junbin can. He has to dive in and dive out and find crucial targets to get to. This is a good start. Heesang, awkward spot for him. He's going to try and double back around the corner. I like that he sticks around, though. Comes back for more. Lip obviously playing in that side room. Knows that the Pharah is going to be on his left. And Junbin will at least be held at bay, but Crazy Raccoon are up to 40%, and that's counting, and they've got to respect the Mauga. At some point, they have to deal with Junbin, who will reassert himself on the point, charging forth. And Harman has to find a way through this. Here's Kitsune Rush getting thrown down by Shu, but Prob's going to find the barrage and trade him out comfortably. It'll be lit with the railgun, though. Good connection. And Heesang couldn't quite float around as much as he would have liked. Harbin gets in there with the boosters. There's the flip now. Team Falcons back in control, but for how much longer? Harbin Chio healthy enough to deal with Lip, and this will get him on the board.
They just try and circumvent that Mauga, right? They end up using the Kitsune Rush first, and Crazy Raccoon does a nice job trying to kite some of it, and they get Shu's Kitsune Rush down a little bit later, but still enough players weak there for Falcons to finish them off, get control of that point. Like, are you going to be able to hold it for long, right? Because Crazy Raccoon, you imagine Junbin, even if you just catch the Diva with that cage fight, that's going to be good enough.
It's a massive problem for Harbin if you get caught outside that. Prophet tries to open up the fight with a bit of poke damage, soften them up somewhat. Lip with a railgun, tries to wrap. Stalker's going to pop his as well as Harbin goes low. That's the cage fight now for Junbin. Orbital Ray going to be in play, and Prophet gets taken down by torpedoes of all things. Chorong having the time of his life inside of his own Orbital Ray. And Harbin now has got to duck down, try and heal back up, get in position. Fielder looking to hit some backliners here, but it's Heesang falling. Lip now knows he's going to be called on to be the lion's share of the damage, and Junbin now sees Harbin come back his way. So slippery, so hard to pin this Diva down, and Falcons are going to maintain control.
Yeah, the Diva's a composition that you necessarily wouldn't want to play like a Winston into either, right? So feels like this Mauga composition, we have seen Mauga win out against Diva over time. Just feels like Crazy Raccoon just needs to get a fight that kind of works in their favor, but this one might not be it, Mitch, because Fielder's going to get close to this Kitsune Rush, but with the amount of percentage on the point, you're going to get close to potentially sealing this round for Falcons.
77 and counting. Stalker playing his life as Fielder's building towards another Kitsune Rush that'll be up much earlier than Shoes. They're happy to bide their time here. They're still accruing capture percentage as this game goes, and Harbin's done a great job floating back and forth between the epicenters of action here. That Kitsune Rush is now online. Fielder looking to line it up here. Great time to pressure Junbin. He's going to back up. Kitsune Rush here now to augment the offensive capacity of Falcons, and they're going for a trade. Fielder eventually has given up, but Chio's still going to be there for the healing. It's Harbin getting rid of Chorong. Juno down, but Lip does find a big rail here. Shu trying to skitter away, but Harbin will be hot on his heels. What a bounce back for Team Falcons. And it really feels like only someone like Harbin could get away with this Diva play.
And I love the decision there from Falcons. They know that Junbin was extremely weak around the corner, and instead of letting Crazy Raccoon just farm up to their own Kitsune Rush, they get aggressive. They use theirs right around the corner, and Junbin doesn't really have a great spot to go. You actually see Hanbin get in between the supports in the tank. It kind of forces Junbin to go towards that point, go with a slam. He tries to use a cardiac overdrive as well to be able to kind of heal himself up, drop down to that mega health pack, but he's not able to live.
Hanbin sees his team's poke, core, take the enemy Mauga quite low. So he uses the defense matrix to soak up a lot of the healing that's naturally going to be going towards him and exploit a window where there's no healing outside of cardiac overdrive available for Junbin. He's over to the Winston now as we head to City Center. Winston
obviously cannot duel out with the Diva, right? In that like kind of one-on-one engagement. Yeah, prolonged engagement. What I will say is though, keep an eye if Junbin's able to actually collapse on top of Chio, right? I think that would be the target here, where the Kiri will use the TP to get away, but can you deal with this Juno in the backline?
And this is emblematic of the two different styles that Falcons and Crazy Raccoon bring. In terms of these two tank picks, Junbin there sees Harman, says, I can't stick around here, but Stalker elsewhere has already gone to work. Junbin was never able to get out with his life. And it's going to be hard for this Winston to know how long he can stick around, how long he can apply that pressure when there's burst damage coming from every angle.
I mean, he jumps in over the top and he sees Stalker in Chio, but Hanbin has his dash on the Diva, just gets right in his face, and then there's no way that anybody on Crazy Raccoon even has line of sight going to be able to heal him. He tries to jump to the rest of the squad, does not make it, and Stalker kicking things off with another kill in this fight.
And that's a good 20% right there. Just the one pick was all they needed. Falcons would like to continue to put pressure on Crazy Raccoon as Lips made the switch over to the Sombra, trying to limit just the flexibility, mobility of Hanbin and disrupt them a little bit.
Does it ever feel good though when you drop the Sojourn, right? Like Sojourn seems to be so strong in the meta, almost like a staple as much as Tracer was previously, and if you have to drop it, it feels quite bad.
It is Lip though, on the Sombra.
True.
Absolutely a quintessential hero for him, but it does reek of a concession. Crazy Raccoon haven't really felt like they could generate any tempo with their comp up to this point. So Lip goes hunting. Can he harass, Stalker proper? Can he stop Hanbin from diving his backline, punishing his Winston? Crazy Raccoon have been the ones to blink first here, and there's the hack going down onto Hanbin. Junbin wants to pressure this somewhat, but Defense Matrix comes back online soon enough, but Shu got picked off. Hanbin was clearly chasing the Kiriko, and there wasn't anything Junbin could do.
I don't love this comp from Crazy Raccoon at all, bringing in the Sombra into the mix. I understand the thought behind it, right? Being able to get these hacks onto Hanbin and then maybe get him down, but a lot of that follow-up damage would have been the Sombra.
Chorong again using that orbital ray offensively. Great damage on the proper Hero, already 84% and counting. He's saying has to make this work. It's only a 1-for-1, there might not be enough. Shu has gone down and Hanbin is literally unkillable here on the point. Junbin trying to double back, Primal in hand. He has no choice but to pop it now. Lip finally is able to drag Fielder off of his high horse, and there's a hunt now for Chio. Junbin should be able to get there, diving deep into spawn. A timely Primal range to keep Crazy Raccoon in this game, but overtime still ticking on the point, and they've lost Lip. Hesak now wants to try and tear strips off of this D.Va, and Stalker's already dealt with Junbin. He can never really get back into the fight and help, so Hesak's going to play his life, stay alive as long as he possibly can. But Stalker's sitting on a railgun here, and Wall Buddy nails Shu with it. Tough to bounce back from that one, indeed. Chorong desperately on the Lucio will also fall to Stalker. And that's all she wrote, folks. What a first map. We are watching Falcons adapt once again to their age-old rival.
And they never actually get rid of Hanbin on the point there. Able to stay alive for so long. We're on board with Junbin as he uses the Primal Rage, pushes on in. What ends up happening is actually he gets taken out by Stalker in Proper off the respawn. That's Proper's Barrage. We hear the call out, but it's Proper just trying to solo Barrage that Winston back by the spawn. And I think Crazy Raccoon, you probably look at that comp again there towards the end, get the idea with the Sombra being able to hack that D.Va, finish the D.Va off. But when that Pharah is just kind of like dueling that other Pharah in the sky, I don't believe you actually have enough damage when you don't have the Sojourn in play.
It's a great snapshot, though, of what both of these teams are trying to do. And like I mentioned earlier, the last time these two teams played that first control map, it was a D.Va ban that came out of Crazy Raccoon. They said, or at least they felt, that they didn't want to deal with it, they couldn't handle it, but this is what Team Falcons have been working on. And they've said, Hanbin's sandbagged a little bit. Yeah, we played Winston.
They're always sandbagged.
We're a main tank team, we're all good. But they can bust their D.Va out here in a pinch. And the fact that you bend your opponents into switching off the Soj, like you said, Matt, and Lip was pretty bloody good in this first round. A big component of what actually allows Crazy Raccoon to come back from an early disadvantage. Put him on a utility-focused hero, it's rough.
And now you have to deal with Proper's Genji, right? Because you end up using the Genji ban here in map number 1. Genji has a lot of great points here on Oasis, but with the Genji gone, they just go to the far, they match it, and they're able to take you out with it. So now the Genji's going to be back in play for Proper the rest of the series, which is a dangerous thought for Crazy Raccoon.
Couple of learnings here, at least, if you're a Crazy Raccoon. It's pretty clear to see that you can win the Amalgamira. I feel like that's where you're favored, especially if your DPS can compete at that level.
Is that like the game you want to play, though?
I don't think you can afford to play it over much of this map pool, is the problem. A lot of these maps are just not really conducive to that. Last time these two teams played, Esperanca and Suravasa were in the map pool. We saw them sort of played out, as well as New Junk City. So a couple of battlefields that are familiar, at least for these two teams in recent memory, but the rest of them, like, you've got Circuit Royal you can throw in here. Like, does Max come in and play like the Ramatra or the Sigma, as we saw? They handle VP pretty comfortably there. A ton of options for you, but you're feeling pretty rough about losing this first map because you definitely pitted your idea against Falcon's idea and came off second best.
I think you can go to, like, Suravasa. I think that's a map that everybody feels pretty comfortable on, especially coming right out of Control, and then also some of the hybrid maps teams will like to avoid, so potentially we could see Suravasa coming up next. And then also at this event, you know, both of these teams have been tremendous on push, right? Just absolutely just blowing people out on push, so maybe that's another option.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see where Crazy Raccoon go, because like I mentioned, you just might have a couple of extra ideas to deal with a team like Team Falcons, especially if every interview you've given over the course of this Champions Clash, you've said that you expect to end up playing them in the finals.
Could play like an Esperanca.
Right, take us there. I mean, that would definitely like open up for the Winston comp, right? You can play Malga on that map. We've definitely seen teams go for it.
Do you ban Malga if you're Crazy Raccoon? I guess then what? That puts you in a world in which you're playing D.Va into Winston potentially, right?
I mean, yeah,
D.Va Winston style.
You're sort of banning the Malga. I think you are concerned about the
okay.
Suravasa very reasonable. There's also this other question. What about Shu? Are you trying to set up a game condition that allows you to have Ana in like a reasonable place and try and exercise an advantage there? Fielder is on the opposite team. So it's not as if you have the Ana GOAT and there's no opposition for him here.
Okay.
He's a Mauga ban straight off the bat.
Yeah, this is kind of going how I originally had mentioned, right? Suravasa, Mauga ban, and then let's see what Falcons decide to do. You could get rid of the Ana here if you're Falcons, right? Because Crazy Raccoon would want to play that Winston with the Ana potentially. We'll see what they go with as the ban will come in. It will be Torbjorn. So we have seen Torb like in the past, right? No, Torb can be a little bit of a nuisance when you're like playing like a Hazard or something along those lines, right?
I think it's the most hostile to Hazard and Tracer compositions.
Yeah.
But Genji's open here.
Yep.
Can't ban that out. And there's a real world where this is just a DPS.
This also might be one where
ban.
you don't exactly want to, there's nothing else you really want to target, and potentially you just kind of throw this in, right?
Honestly, if you're in that position and it's map number 2, you're feeling pretty good. There's nothing that sort of reaches out of the page to you with something that needs to be dealt with or you're trying to avoid. That definitely speaks to a surge of confidence here for Team Falcons. As of course, Crazy Raccoon will be electing to take us over to Suravasa. And like I said before, we did see this. Crazy Raccoon won this in the second map against Falcons. Falcons banned Winston on that particular map. So different approach, different strategy here when it comes to the bans. It'll be Mauga and Torb off the table.
So the Mauga seemed like one that was definitely going to go at some point during this series from Crazy Raccoon. Potentially early, right? You lose this, you're in some trouble.
I guess they just don't feel like playing the mirror because in the Mauga mirror, I think they looked extremely serviceable. Very reasonable there. Which is odd. We're kind of seeing the two teams' styles cross over at points, but we might be in for a treat, folks. A good old-fashioned Kirika Lucio Winston Shell. Tracer Genji mixed in. It'll be nice to see that Sojourn obviously still on the table, still a very good option to go with here, especially with a perk that gives you those 2 slides, that extra escape potential should Winston come knocking.
And like how you mentioned, getting rid of that Torb opens up some Tracer play, right? And if you're Falcons and you have proper, Tracer is an amazing pick, especially to combo with the Winston.
And he's like someone who's been looked at as Johnny, sort of talked this team through the intros as someone that would need to step up, would need to raise the level against opposition like Proper and Stalker. Can he do that on this map? It's time for map 2, folks. Also the early pleasantries being exchanged here already, Lip getting some attention from Harbitters. Falcons are the first team to make a surge forward.
And a lot of these Winston-based compositions with that Tracer in the mix, right? Or how well can your Winston and Tracer organize on those dives as Stalker connects with a railgun shot as the player crosses the point.
All right, bubble down here for Junbin. Got to be careful. Lip also getting a little bit low now. Bit of buckling happening on the Crazy Raccoon side of things, and Falcons are not in a hurry. They could Harbin forward, and Junbin is just too low.
Look at the ult charge here between Stalker and Lip. I mean, 54 to 24 there in that first fight, the neutral. Just so much more damage out of the Sojourn on the side of Falcons.
I mean, it paid off there. You saw that Junbin was low, tries to dive up, and eventually gets taken down. Definitely getting a lot of stares here from the enemy Sojourn.
We're on with Stalker, and you can see that every time somebody crosses the point, he's connecting with a railgun shot, right? I mean, whether it be Lip, whether it be any of the other players. Lip has his hands full with Stalker on the other side, matching him on the Sojourn, but then also has to worry about Proper coming after him as he deals with Chorong.
And speak the devil's name, and he shall appear. It's going to be Proper dealing with Chorong at the start of this game, so now that flexibility no longer available to Crazy Raccoon will also further delay Chorong building that sound barrier and give Chiyo a chance to catch up and have them mirrored in the next fight. Already 74%. Proper wants to try and chase things down. That is dirty Chiyo there, flanking him. The Goon Squad just flattens him.
You don't chase like that unless you are absolutely sure you are just going to run through the opposing Tracer, as 95% looks like Crazy Raccoon going to set up. They will get a touch. It'll be a Kitsune rush as well.
Jumin dies in, but he has to forsake his barrier and now just chilling from the rafters. Stalker looking to RKO them. Lip finally gets rid of his opposite number, but it's something that comes far too late in the day. A recall there for Heesang, but it's just dragging out the inevitable on this first flashpoint as Falcons look resplendent. What a start.
The first fight, Stalker had about 61% towards overclock, and then we end the entire first point, and Lib's at 74.
God,
so
he never got there.
I am looking at these DPS players for Crazy Raccoon. you need to step up to match the firepower that Proper and Soccer are putting out.
Okay, a little bit dicey there for Hanbin. Didn't really have anywhere good to go. Shu, of course, will chime in when the damage is needed. So a good start here, but both teams come in with relatively matched ultimates. A pulse for Heesang might be the difference maker, but sound barrier on both sides.
The kill happened so early, and it is Hanbin, that you're going to get back here and get a fight for Falcons. For Crazy Raccoon, though, you do get this advantageous position to be able to sit up on some of the high ground.
Hanbin steps up. It's going to be a sound barrier now deployed for Falcons. Chorong has the laser beat, and Junbin clutching onto this Primal Rage, looking for a good use case. Oh, buddy, that's brutal. And again, the head-to-head of Sojourns is going to be instrumental on this map. Stalker wins it out once again, and the rest of the ultimates, frankly, just don't end up mattering. Hanbin back to the point. Team Falcons happy as Larry, Proper stashing a pulse bomb for a later day.
Later beat from Crazy Raccoon does not matter. Is Falcons being, do we see it there from Lips POV? Junbin is actually primaling Stalker. Stalker just turns to his left and just domes Lip there.
It's almost
with
as
a
if
railgun
Junbin
shot.
delivered Stalker to get in position to kill Lip.
And Falcons is in a 6th spot now, right? I mean, you have this Kitsune rush. You're going to end up with this overclock as well. You can take a little bit more of an an aggressive fight if you want.
They're going to try and burst Junbin down with these ultimates, man. I'm sure of it. Lip with an overclock, but what is he looking at? He's got nothing to see, and he's been zoned out of the fight entirely. He has to spend his time trying to swat at Proper, who is never going to stand still long enough for the Sojourn to find the kill. And there it is. Burst Junbin down. That's the strategy, but finally Lip gets in there, and it's on Stalker of all people. Proper now once again embroiled in a deadly duel with Heesang, but he's always got help. Chio always seems to be there, but Heesang's done his job. He's drawn these two players away from the main formation, and he does eventually go down, but Crazy Raccoon returned to the roost with their Winston in tow.
Yeah, but is it enough, right? You still have Shield Fielder and Proper alive here, so finally they are able to flip as Fielder trying to get a TP out, not able to make it. But Falcons set up still here. Mitch in a fantastic spot. Overclock here for Stalker coming on back. But double support all for Crazy Raccoon, right? So you're going to have a huge advantage in that regard.
The beat didn't matter last time. Your 2024 World Finals MVP made sure of that.
You use beat and the Kitsune rush here for Crazy Raccoon, and you lose this fight. It is chalk.
Yeah, pretty cooked. Heesang there is forced to respect a glancing blow off a railgun, but still one that forces him out of that sideline. Crazy Raccoon here looking for anybody to poke their head up. It's going to be Hanbin going in first. Stalker with the overclock. What an aggressive position. The guy is unchained. Junbin's able to deal with him now, and a sound barrier comes too late. Crazy Raccoon get a ton of value out of their overshield. Chorong, of course, gets himself onto the kill feed in the best way possible. But a really aggressive thrust there for Falcons.
Yeah, Falcons, they end up investing their sound barrier and their overclock there. It is the double support they'll use there for Crazy Raccoon. Is they will pick up Stalker off the respawn. Is it will be one person getting on and touching, but Crazy Raccoon should be able to tie this up.
All right, looking good now. Shu just delivers that Suzu to make sure everything's hunky-dory. He's proper. We'll try and drag this out a little bit longer. Let just swats him aside. Young blood, let me talk.
It's always so dangerous though when Proper's on the Tracer, right? Every time you see him, regardless if you know his team is down, a player or two, there's always a thought that he's just gonna
the possibility of magic whenever I see that guy.
He is just going to come out of nowhere and just kill two players with one clip.
Take stock of things here. Primal Rage is to be matched in the next fight, but Crazy Raccoon have the tools to just burst Hanbin down if he gets too cocky. Lip slides in, disrupt the shot, thrown down, and potentially protected from a dive. Oh, that's Fielder getting picked up. Stalker, though, doesn't want better. Gets rid of the Lucio of all things. But the Primal Rages now start to be a factor. It's a messy fight, but Stalker is out of it. Here's Junbin now, swatted away by Hanbin, but is healthy enough at least to retreat into his bubble. Flashpoint only now available. Such an early fight taken by both these sides that they didn't want to wait. Fielder has a Kitsune rush to bring it to the next engagement, though.
Yeah, and Proper actually stays alive on the point, so at that last moment, it's just the Tracers and the Winstons alive for each team, and Proper was on the backside by that point, able to just kind of put a touch on it there, drag Junbin and Heesang back, and then he deals with Heesang, everybody coming off of spawn. Quite interesting is Falcons are pretty fortunate they end up winning that fight. And they also end up holding onto the Kitsune rush, not of their own doing, right? Fielder gets domed by Lit right off the bat.
It's hard to avoid making a pound-for-pound comparison of these DPS, Matt. Stalker v Lib, Heesang v Proper. It definitely feels like it favors Falcons across the board. 46% and counting, and a fight won without a singular ultimate to be invested. Very good signs for your team in blue.
It's so dangerous on this point because You see Stalker able to farm these railguns, and you're just kind of walking around the corner directly into them.
All right, we're at a crossroads, and I'm not talking about both of those Kiriko ultimates. There's a sound barrier now for Chorong, matched by Chio. It's getting hot and heavy in there. Up to the skies, Junbin goes, he goes low, but Lip is the one under real pressure. Harbin's able to deal with it now, but gives up his life in order to claim the Sojourn. Junbin might be next on the chopping block, and Fielder ensures it. Chorong, though, absolutely wants to knock heads together in this engagement, and there's a flip behind this. Crazy Raccoon back in control, but Stalker's not out of the fight yet. Flanked by Fielder, trying to keep him in the game, but a self-Suzu means that Fielder's effectiveness is limited. Stalker still wants to have a crack at this now, but there's too many bodies to look at. And it feels like this is just biding time for the team to return, and they have.
He feels safe enough, though, to kind of go around this corner, form up a railgun shot, right? That's what he's trying to do, potentially take one out. Now the rest of the team back in the fight, see if he can set them up.
They're relentless, just relentless. Falcons back for their prey once more. Proper force to recall there as he dies in Chorong's direction and is booped back. Lip's got a good off angle here, and Falcons decide to regroup for a moment.
You're going to build up towards a primal. You're also going to maybe take enough damage to end up building up here towards your Kitsune rush.
Karbin just controls that Mega, picks it up for himself, sees Junbin there and gives him a bit of a tickle now. Knows the jump is on cooldown, so Harman can hit this backline. Has his jump available. Primal now active, and Lip is getting good damage on him here with those 150 rails. Great damage on Harman there, and Fielder can't save him. Kitsune Rush still going to be deployed to the point for Team Falcons now, and they need to work through Crazy Raccoon, but Chorong, I tell you what, these final blows off the Lucio have been ridiculous. And a sound barrier, and again, the perfect time will give Crazy Raccoon the leg up here. 2-1 in flashpoints, and the Trash Pandas have come alive.
That primal from Hanbin left a lot to be desired there as he jumps in, just starts flailing his arms and becomes a pinata there. That Lip and the rest of the go just farming up.
I mean, that's the risk of diving a Sojourn with that perk, with Overclock available. It's pretty easy to hit a Winston in your face, and it's pretty easy to chunk him down quicker than he can be healed. Sound barrier here for Falcons.
Yeah, this is really early.
For position, not for the point.
I mean, there's 15 seconds left before the point even unlocks, right? It's just Junbin going on in, popping primal, and then getting that sound barrier out. That's huge.
That's ugly, man. Pulse bomb there for Proper, doesn't quite reach its intended target, and he's saying sees a low health Tracer in his field of view. Fielder falling already, and Crazy Raccoon capitalize on a real overstep there for Falcons. All the composure they took into the first map, and most of this seems to be gone.
And maybe for Falcons, you thought that there was going to be more follow-up there when Junbin goes on in, ends up using that primal, and then you end up using the beat. But as soon as the beat gets dropped, he is out of there, and that just sets him up perfectly. They have a Kitsune Rush to follow up right after that. The tide seemed to be turning in favor of Crazy Raccoon.
Harbin jumped down by a lot of this poke damage early. Stalker now is looking for an opening. Needs to find a winner, but a great bubble thrown right in his way is going to be a problem. Junbin dies. Chorong tries to keep him up, and Elise is able to find the trade. They got rid of Stalker. Sojourn gap being exacerbated, but Falcons still in the mix. Lip goes down. Proper sees a pretty easy target in Chorong there. And Crazy Raccoon will have to satisfy themselves with about 60% before the flip comes back and Falcons fight for the map.
So it's that overclock that comes through there from Stalker. They absolutely needed that big burst of damage from the Sojourn, and they have a lot to make up here, right? Crazy Raccoon, you're going to have a fight that you can probably take here, maybe try and get that rush out, then come back. You're still going to be in the lead and have double support on.
Lip repositions, trying to keep an eye on Stalker, but instead turns his attention to Chio, but that leaves him open to Hanbin. Tickles him down, Lip going low, but the healing's been so good here for Shu. Sound barrier now for Chorong. Chio doesn't have his available right now, and Hanbin's looking for a primal rage moment, but Junbin's doing him one better. He's found a squishy Stalker and tears him limb from limb. Shu is out of the fight though. Hanbin's able to get one at least as he lands, and Lip desperately tries to reposition. What a rail shot onto Hanbin. The overclock pays dividends, and Team Falcons, for all their bluff and bluster, blunder here as they try and close the point.
So Falcons will end up taking a brief lead. It'll be switched back here to Crazy Raccoon. But the difference here is Falcons will end up having this sound barrier. No overclock on the other side to like chunk it down. You will have that Kitsune Rush though, right? Not an ultimate in terms of like big sustain, but you will be able to fight a little bit more inside of it.
His Stalker flips around, sees the Kira, or rather, Sojourn, excuse me, just descends upon Lip. He says Pulse Bomb does find purchase. We got a 4 versus 4. Stalker now out of the picture, and he says looking to make this even worse. A quick flip on the point there as Raccoon were about to take the map. But still, they've got the numbers now to push the rest of Falcons away. Chio down, nice little right click there from Junbin. Classy stuff. And now it's about dealing with the dregs. Oh, buddy, it's a good old-fashioned bar brawl as Harbin tries to drop on in. Bubble gives him a bit of space to breathe, but the rest of Crazy Raccoon quickly exfil him from the point. Way to bring me another. It doesn't get any better than this.
So it'll be Crazy Raccoon tying this one up. We talked a little bit about it in the pregame, right? Where you were like, oh, Hanbin says they have no problem playing that Winston. I think there's something different about saying that and then doing it, right? And I think as the map went on, Crazy Raccoon started to figure it out and had a big advantage over Falcons.
I mean, against probably any other team at this tournament,
That's
I would
totally
believe
fine.
Hanbin,
Yeah,
right?
totally fine.
Here, though, if you're in the Thunderdome, if you want to take a dive mirror against Crazy Raccoon, you had best not miss. And still a pretty competitive game. That first flashpoint, I think, was very strong. I think we are able to see Falcons DPS players put a lot of pressure down on Junbin early, take him out, start of the fight, snowball from there. That's fine. But as the game starts to settle in a little bit more, we start to see those Winston rotations, and just the fact that someone like Lip is being dove frequently and always being kept up. Shu is never leaving his side, really focused on making sure their Sojourn can stay in the fight.
But now the ball goes back into the Falcons' court, right? They can decide where we go. They will get that first ban yet again to really make a big impact. As we take a look at some of the highlights, it started really good for Falcons. As even in the map loss, Stalker has been really good.
I mean, stunning stuff from him. You saw that sort of first fight as Junbin ends up getting brought down. Choring is someone who appears in the kill feed probably more frequently than most Lucio players that you see, especially when these fights start to break down. There were many such occasions where we saw that. You mentioned a couple of these primals from Hanbin where he really makes a beeline for Lip. There are options here for Sojourns. Yeah, I mean, look at the health. Look at how it drops. There are options now for Sojourns to sort of deal with this, right? You have an extra slide if you're going to go in that direction perk-wise. Giving yourself 150 max charge doing Railgun means that you can pepper that Winston down a little bit quicker. Yes, Primal gives you a massive health pool, but when everyone starts to turn and looks to burst that Winston down, Hanbin quickly realizes, I've made a big mistake. I've completely overextended.
So if you're Falcons, your options here, at least in my opinion, you can play Runasapi, right? That's a map that doesn't even really kind of lend well towards like dive tanks anyway, right? So you can potentially go there. Obviously, Circuit Royale, a map that doesn't play well for those either, right? You can get, Hanbin, whether it be like on a Diva, a Sigma, something along those lines, Ramatra even. And like I mentioned, Runasapi is a map that, even historically, like when there's not been bans or whatever, Winston's not really great. Same with like a ball, it's not really awesome on Runasapi. You kind of have to play like Maga, Ramatra types of comps.
Is there a world where Falcons tries to play a poke comp? Hanbin Sigma, pretty legendary.
You'd be like Circuit, right?
They can take a Circuit. They can take like proper Pharah. They can Stalker on the Sojourn. They could obviously make that switch up there.
I mean, the Genji's really good on Circuit as well,
yeah.
Right? To be able to kind of get that, positioning around the corners and whatnot.
It probably means like a
chase.
max substitution, and probably Crazy Raccoon opt to be the aggressor in that matchup and play Ramatra-based comp. But we've also seen them handle Sigma pretty admirably. This is the thing about these two teams, folks. They're not locked into any one style. We might see like slight edges game from one or another, like we saw in that previous map with the Winston dive, but these two teams can play it all, and they aren't afraid to dig deep into that strap bag.
Yeah, if you saw like a sub on the stage, I would definitely say maybe we're going to like Circuit. We still obviously have some time as the players all get set up and the kind of the bands get underway and the map selection comes in. So we'll see what ends up happening in the end. There's also like if you're okay, so we'll see. Okay, so it is Runasapi. So this is what I was talking about, where this is a map that does not lend well to dive tanks anyway. So this also gives you an option, right? Do you even ban out like a Winston, right? Do you kind of tease them into potentially? This is where you can ban maybe like an Ana, right? Kind of like secure that anyway. I mean, dude, it's 2 a.m. I'm on fire. This is my prime. This is my prime hours now. So for Crazy Raccoon, this kind of takes like Winston off the board a little bit, right? So you're already in this type of brawl out tank type of scenario. You've already banned the Maga here, so you don't have that available. What could you can have a support available.
Are you trying to play Orisa here at all?
Could you get rid of Pharah potentially?
I mean, Heesang would probably be happy to play it. Cassidy.
So we've seen teams go to Cassidy on this. We've seen like Lethal do it for Nightmare. We saw it in that series where I think in that one the Sojourn was gone, but Cassidy has pretty good effective range here, especially dealing with whether it be a Genji or a Pharah in the sky.
Doesn't it make you wonder though about they're trying to take away like an answer to like flanking DPS? Like we've already seen Lip attempt to bring Sombra into the game. Like, is that an option?
I mean, if you play... So, I mean, yeah, you could play Sombra, right? I mean, if you're there going to play Maga on the other side, what are you playing the Sombra for, really?
Because obviously, it's not a Protect ban. That's the follow-up ban.
Well, also, getting rid of the Ana not only makes it harder to play those Winston comps, also takes, like, the Bio Grenade option available, right, if you do play that Maga composition.
That might be the plan here. Ana off the board, Shu, without access to his most legendary hero. And again, it was mentioned, I think Johnny kind of gave him the moniker. Perhaps one of the greatest players of all time was something he ascribed to Lip. And in this era, I definitely think that's a far more contentious title to offer to someone. And I don't think it maybe helps that Crazy Raccoon have asked Lip to sort of get out of the Sojo Mirror and play Sombra on that first map, try and find a way to shut down that Hanbin Diva, excuse me. Falcons here already gearing up for a bit of a Mauga fight, and Proper gets to play that Genji. Arguably, one of the strongest looks here for Team Falcons at their disposal. And Crazy Raccoon might still be considering Winston with Shooterback Junbin up, which he did an admirable job of on Suravasa.
Well, we'll see. It can be difficult to keep that Winston alive, obviously, against these Maga compositions. So, well, this is going to be... So if you're going to run this, if you're Crazy Raccoon, you are going to play fast, right? You're going to try and collapse maybe onto Fielder or Stalker. It can be hard, man, to play this Winston into that Maga.
Sojourn is the only duplicated hero on this map, so very, very different. Again, these two teams showing their colors, being very different stylistically. We'll have this neutral fight played out where Junbin really wants to establish control there, such that he'll throw a bubble. Harbin's just looking for a bit of a reposition, so Falcons have seen something they don't love. It might be this Farah that they've got to answer.
And this isn't the type of composition for Crazy Raccoon where you will really kind of initiate, right? It's about Falcons maybe trying to come in there with Hanbin on that Maga. You get him quite low, and then when he's trying to charge away, that's when your Winston jumps in, and that's where you try and finish him off.
You see, that's priority number one for Lip, is just trying to keep that Mauga health pool as low as possible, and Geo doesn't really have the mobility to avoid that questing rail, and Lip finds yet another one. Here's the issue, I guess, for Falcons. They're too slow in achieving their aim, and Lip really had all the room in the world to work in.
So the comp for Falcons, right? You want to go. That's how you get the most value out of the Maga and the Genji. And Crazy Raccoon is just kind of welcoming them in. Like, okay, dive, right? Go, use that charge, come on in. And they have Chorong to speed them out. You get a lot of damage down with that Fora and the Sojourn, then those players are weak, they're trying to get out, then that's when you follow it up with that Winston.
Falcons feel like they have like a wide turning circle, right? Like not the most mobile and can't pivot, so if they do expose themselves amidst these rotations, Crazy Raccoon could sort of pinpoint the weaknesses, like it's Geo left out in the open, for example. And they're going to keep pushing here. Team Falcons, those shields up. Of course, they are going to make use of the cardiac overdrive, try and stay in this, but Harmon has the turntail and run. It's raw aggression from Crazy Raccoon, and Falcons don't know how to hit them with some stopping power.
Yeah, this has been brutal here for Falcons. This ends up being their map pick. They get that first ban, you get that on out of the way, but Crazy Raccoon, you still are going to commit to playing this Winston into the Maga on the other side. Can be so difficult, but making it look easy right now.
Yeah, they're just waiting on that cooldown. The charge cooldown from Harmon, and he serves himself up as a tasty morsel. Rather probably a full course meal given his proportions. But Lip is taken down. Proper here now on the Tracer, off the Genji. Wends his way into the backline and takes the Sojourn out of the game, allowing Falcons to assume some degree of priority, at least getting back to parry on the map.
The Tracer can give you a little bit more damage in the neutral, right? As opposed to the Genji is. You actually see Crazy Raccoon get back in the fight right away. It'll be Stalker using the overclock. Connects with Chorong, finishes him off, and Chorong had the beat.
Yeah, Junbin here with a Primal Rage now still expiring, and he knows there's just no point trying to make use of it here. Like you said, that beat is down, but Falcons have had to make use of both these support ultimates to get moving.
Yeah, I guess with the positive B for Crazy Raccoon, if you want to look for one, right, is you ended up primaling, and they ended up using Overclock plus Rally on the other side. That would be the thing you would look at for an advantage. This is going to be Chorong using the beat. They go in right away, deal with Stalker.
Back with a vengeance. Crazy Raccoon wastes no time in making use of that sound barrier, and Chio again, just floaty, has nowhere to go. He sank a beat on him and did not let him out of his sight. Harvin now kind of trapped in with the enemy team after throwing that cage fight down. And once again, Crazy Raccoon show why this comp looks so good against Falcons. Proper might have switched to the Tracer because Falcons don't feel comfortable full committing.
Yeah.
They're also trying to draw something out of Crazy Raccoon, but Hanbin,
but if
after
you can't,
charging, can be so easily punished.
But if you can't full commit, like,
then why are you playing Mauga?
Why are you playing Mauga?
Yeah.
Like, this is also something for Falcons, right? You could definitely play D.Va into, right? Like, we saw them do that with this type of composition on the first map.
Chorong again goes down first. Another first pick here on the Lucio for Crazy Raccoon. Quickly get back involved. Fielder falls. Liv is now hitting these railguns, and it's being felt by the Falcons. They're going to feel it in their bones on a cold day. He's hitting that hard. Now, of course, we'll have a checkpoint secure. Crazy Raccoon definitely in the lead here on Runasapi.
They get Chorong first, but it's a Kitsune Rust from Shu that ends up carrying them over the line. And now look, Hanbin, he's going to have to obviously play aggressive, close this gap, maybe ends up using the charge, and they're going to end up using the barrage and the overclock, and they're just going to burn him down. They've done this like 2 or 3 times already.
Heesang wraps around. Those are Falcons still somewhat in disarray. Hanbin at least is getting forward, trying to contest, and is actually moving the bot with proper back to a more neutral position, but there's a whole fight brewing elsewhere, and that's the barrage to burn the Mauga down. Dirty little direct hit there, and desperately Chio is trying to skitter away. Proper has managed to abduct the bot. Credit to him there.
Just 60 more meters to go.
Yep. Get those hiking boots on, son.
They found him.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess benefit there is proper moves the bot back towards the mid-map. Doesn't allow them to just kind of keep rolling it in to the Falcons base, but it still has looked really ugly.
Prime up here for Junbin. Not much else to speak of, though, for Crazy Raccoon. Last time we saw Stalker with this rail, he finds a key first pick. OC at the ready. Harmon again, been tentative this map. Being on a hero that wants to commit but has just been unsure.
Well, there's no targets for him really either, right?
Too mobile. And again, they've stuck to the Mauga though, so that's a question we're going to keep asking, I think, over the course of Runasapi. As there's a pretty big lead that Crazy Raccoon have been able to mount. And he's saying, oh, what a dirty off angle. Stalker with the overclock popped. Has it stuffed straight up his nose. And now he's saying, gets to apply the thumb screws a little tighter. Now Team Falcons are in disarray, like a kicked anthill. They're swarming in different parts of the map. They've got to regroup, and that is going to cost them time and meterage.
And it feels like you should have maybe kind of moved away from this Mauga composition a fight or two ago, but they have fully committed to it. 80 meters and counting here for Crazy Raccoon.
Kitsune Rush now being deployed by Fielder. He knows he's got to get Falcons back into the game somehow. Heesang sees proper nipping at his heels and thinks to take the fight, but there's a sound barrier now for both sides. Junbi, though, doesn't get it. He doesn't benefit from it whatsoever. A little bit low now, needs to back away. Shield can be deployed, and Harmon is taken down once more inside of his own cage. Lips out of the game. Proper's running rough shot over Crazy Raccoon here, willing his team back into the map. And you better believe for now it's worked.
It is such a huge deficit, though, man. It is going to be extremely difficult to get back into this one here for Falcons. So we are more than halfway through Runasapi, and a massive lead here for Crazy Raccoon. And after that first fight, this is about as far as Falcons has got. That's a huge pick.
Okay, he's saying actually a little just pressure there in the backline. A bit of a time there on him by Hanbin. Perfect Suzu time in there for Shu. He can dish the Ds, but when he has to be that utility player, he absolutely delivers in moments like that. Still though, Crazy Raccoon are in flux. They don't quite have everybody in position now as Junpin returns to their ranks, so they've got to try and avoid Hanbin, who wants to thrust further at them. This opens up space for Falcons to set up for an assault on their checkpoint.
You imagine, though, a barrage going to be lined up here from Heesang. No support ultimates on the opposite side. They've done a nice job of putting that pressure on the Stalker, right? The last time he got that overclock was taken out so fast, got no value from it.
Tentative here.
Rocket too.
2 minutes 13 left to play. Not a lot. Falcons need to be picture perfect from this point onward. And he's saying keeping tabs there on proper. Well, keeping the Tracer honest.
For CR, just forcing them to come around the corner, right?
Oh, perfect. Heesang had the barrage ready to deploy, and Falcons now going to follow up with this Kitsune Rush. It's classy stuff from Stalker. Mid-air, poetry in motion. The rails keep coming, and Crazy Raccoon have got no choice but to succumb.
Yeah, Crazy Raccoon, they wanted to play around that corner, right? Force Falcons to engage around it. You know, maybe have Hanbin charge around, try and collapse the proper. Then you could have followed that up with that barrage as they got aggressive, but Stalker goes inside of that house, takes out Heesang from the side, and that opens things up for Falcons.
Heesang still has that barrage now to play with, and a Primal is brewing here for Junbin. It's going to be an overclock to start the fight, though. Stalker again wants to keep Heesang out of the fight. He's got to respect it. Sound barrier has to be deployed there by Chorong. Was getting a little bit dicey. And here comes Heesang looking for a mobile barrage, but it's a sound barrier that stuffs the ultimate entirely. Falcons now in a position to snap into the lead for the first time this map. Primal for Junbin looks a little bit awkward. He's out of position, out of sorts, out of the game for now. And Falcons are approaching the total of Crazy Raccoon with less than a minute left to play. It's that Crazy Raccoon on the receiving end.
And this would be why you don't see a lot of teams play Winston comps into Mauga, as eventually it just feels like once the Mauga gets rolling, once you start to figure out how to play against that Winston-based composition, you have a huge advantage. Now Crazy Raccoon, they will go to a Mauga of their own here at the very end, but Falcons, the damage has been done. They've taken the lead.
If that isn't admitting defeat, I don't know what is. Hanbin has the cage fight at the ready. Lip here needs to make his way through it. He needs to open his cage up if he possibly can. Midfielder already out of the game. That's been dealt with at least. 3 players up for both sides, and Shu had a Kitsune rush. He's not going to have a chance to deploy it. Lip might be called on here to save them, but there's just no space, no time. And Stalker deals in the quantum death blow. Team Falcons now in the dying seconds are even considering a map completion. After having to play so patient, so careful over the course of this map, they finally get their hurrah.
At one point, this was 85 meters to 19, and Falcons have run it down 133 meters. Oh, and now you lose Lip right off the rip.
Speaking of run down, Lip joins the ranks of those. Hum is able to find the charge here on Chorong, and that's it. Done with the crying here for Crazy Raccoon. Team Falcons are back with a vengeance, no longer happy to sit and wait for their opportunities. They go for the jugular at the perfect moments. Stalker, dirty stuff. He's saying out of the game. And that's what you get for your map pick. Team Falcons get into the lead.
And if Crazy Raccoon ends up losing this series, this may be the map that we look back on. And it is just Stalker, because they're set up, Crazy Raccoon, to play around that Heesang barrage and let them come around that corner with that Mauga. And Stalker comes right on through with a railgun, just takes him out on the side. Never got a use of that barrage. Then they just start running it down the map. At that point, they were able to get checkpoint. They come back in the next fight. It's a kill onto Lip early on, and that turns into 2 consecutive fights, which ends up giving them the lead.
And this game is delivering. You can't ask for much more than this now. Yeah. It's a Falcons map pick, and there's some interesting bans, right? Cassidy's taken off the table. Sojin, of course, that was still an entirely viable option.
I will say, the Runasapi map pick is really good, and then you ban the Ana because it also saves the Winston potentially for later on.
Yeah, absolutely. You keep that in your back pocket, and despite this, Crazy Raccoon still wanted to play the Winston composition, and it makes sense. You're trying to exploit that somewhat lack of mobility that the Mauga composition has, but if you can be patient and stay healthy in the front line, you saw Hanbin, it paid off. They're able to snowball fight after fight, shutting down, of course, that crucial barrage for Crazy Raccoon. We're going to take a breather, take a break, and head over to the desk to break down what we've seen so far in this championship match.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Falcons now up 2-0, winning their map pick after it looked dire, all right? Up until 2 minutes at the very end there on the clock, they were far behind, and somehow, some way, Mauga picking up speed. And then Junbin is the one who has to switch over to match the Mauga. It didn't work out for them, a little too late there, unfortunately. How did they find traction with that Mauga?
I mean, this is something they've done before, right? Making the comebacks on push, falling behind, where typically on this game mode, I mean, when a team falls behind, they have such a tactical disadvantage. Usually we see them crumble, but Falcons has so much confidence in this comp. Once they mirror this Lucio carry backline, eventually, slowly, they work their way into the advantage. I think in large part is Proper's Tracer creating such problems in the backline.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for a year now, this has been Falcons' go-to push map. They're so incredibly comfortable on this. And you look at the rest of this series, you know, pressure is on Crazy Raccoon here, because Falcons, they're coasting pretty comfortably right now. They have losers pick in this format they can rely on. So for the rest of this series, Crazy Raccoon, they have to now, of course, defend and win their own map pick. But for the rest of the series, if they want to win this grand finals, they will ultimately have to beat Falcons at one of their own map picks.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what Crazy Raccoon want to lean into here. I feel like the Circuit Royale could be a nice pick going into this next matchup, especially with how well Heesang was performing on that Mei up against Nightmare.
that could be the look they go to. I mean, I think one thing that's worrisome though for CR is assuming you win this map, right? You take us to a map pick, you win it. That also means that Falcons get to avoid Ilios. They get to take us right back to control, play the Zhang Tower right in their comfort zone. I don't think that's unwinnable for Crazy Raccoon, but I think they'd much rather be going to something like the Ilios, playing those heavy dive comps. That being said, I think for CR, I feel like you probably want to keep Junbin on the server. I mean, just it feels the way this tournament has gone. Max has been solid. However, they've wanted to play around Junbin. That's the wheelhouse. You know, to go away from that here is almost like to be the team to blink in the series and to go away from your strongest look.
Well, let's take a look at our map set to see where the team is taking us for this next map.
That's not Route 66.
66. Not quite what's displayed. So which one is wrong? The picture or the
It's definitely the picture.
I don't think it's Busan.
Yeah, it's definitely the picture.
Busan not in.
Crucially
Okay,
here,
right
though.
map. So Route 66 is the map, but Busan is not.
And
where we're
crucially
actually
here,
ending up.
Falcons have already spent the Ana ban here as well. We
Yes.
saw yesterday what Shu can do on that hero on Route 66 against once again. He was the best player in the server. So Crazy Raccoon here, how can they set up Shu for success on this map pick?
Zenban, mostly just a protect there for the support, so it would seem. And for Crazy Raccoon, I mean, the interesting thing as we get this deep into the series, especially in the first to four format and grand finals, is we get really deep in the ban phase. At some point, the relevant heroes to ban out, you're kind of running out of them. You know, that you end up more in the free form options now. Everything going to get to be on the table for both teams. And we get to see really pound for pound whose strength is more dominant. These two teams have very different visions of how to play, and they're slowly going to be able to bring more and more of those tools into play on each map.
Yeah, we talked about how familiar these two teams are with each other. So most of the bans and also the map picks and choices and preferences, they know that about each other. So it's not like anything they can do here to really surprise the opponents.
No, not at all. And we even see it when it comes down to the adaptations that we're seeing mid-map, right? Neither of these teams are afraid to go for those mirrors. They know their strength, they know their opponents, and they know that they can match them head-to-head.
And on a map like Road 66, especially with the hazard ban here, you know, I wonder, will Shu end up going back to the Ana? Because as good as he's been on it, I think there's also some vulnerability to the Ana pick. We've seen Lucio Carey and Juno Brig be the more dominant backlines across this tournament because the Ana, as powerful as she is, as much playmaking as she offers, she's also a vulnerability, a liability at times where you don't really have that escape. I mean, heck, even Sojourns have a hard time staying alive with the rate of play that we're seeing in this tournament.
I mean, his Kiriko has looked really good throughout this tournament as well. We saw him just immediately pop off on Suravasa previously. It could be a strong start to make that pivot early.
Still though, this map pick from Crazy Raccoon, this is a pivotal map in the series that Crazy Raccoon has to defend. If you fall to a 3-1 deficit in this grand finals, it's looking all but secured for Falcons considering they would have 2 map picks in hand.
Yeah, so once again, a reminder, as you just mentioned, that we are playing the first to 4 format here in our grand finals. So not all hope lost, but Falcons is putting themselves in a very good position there after it almost looked like they're about to lose their own map pick. But that just goes to show how close those two teams are matching each other.
And Proper, this series, played a lot of Tracer. Curious to see how this matchup against Heesang is going to go.
Well, we don't have to wait long as we're locking into Route 66. So for all the action, we're going to send it back over to our good friends, Matt and Mitch.
Welcome back
good
to the booth,
friends now.
folks. Yeah, we're friends. That's true and factual. Good to have you back, of course, now. And as Johnny mentioned, a pivotal map for Crazy Raccoon to go down 3-1 in this first to 4 series feels almost insurmountable. A superhuman effort to come back. Zenban, hazard ban here. Looks like we're locked in for a bit of Winston play.
It would be quite brutal to fall down 3-1 as you're just rattling through your map picks with no positive results to show for it. As Hanbin does get hit with a bio here towards the beginning, but not going to play close up enough to get caught off guard with it. As Crazy Raccoon, they will play Chorong on the break. This is to protect Shoot on the Ana. Johnny talked about the Ana being susceptible to some dive, and then for Falcons, he'll have Fielder on that Curie, so going to have that cleanse available.
In theory, got to be the best look for Crazy Raccoon here. Something that they just run roughshod over teams in that lower bracket with the Ana for Shu. Legendary for a good reason. See how on the attack side here, Jumbin already chunked down a little bit, but they made some decent progress. Proper's already looking for a way to find a weak point here on Crazy Raccoon. they're not in a hurry to give up this high ground. Junbin now wants to try and set up Big Earls. Will be chased by Hanbin as he'll keep tabs on his opposite number over much of these early stages of the fight.
And for Crazy Raccoon, you're going to end up being able to build up this nano, right? Shu getting very close to it, and I mean, you get Hanbin, so not even really going to have to feel you need to use it here early on. So really nice pick, getting rid of the Winston on the opposing side. That allows you to hold that nano here for what's coming up soon as Shu takes out 3.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. And you notice we saw Shu's POV earlier. Hanbin is chasing Junbin around the map. Shu is just holding M1, pumping damage into that Winston, and becomes not insignificant over a longer period of time. Nano Boost already deployed here as well, Matt. Dangerous stuff. Is it Bio or a warning shot? Hanbin gets brought down anyway. It's going to be tough for Falcons to keep their frontliner in these fights.
I mean, Shu's already got his perk 1. He's not even really worried about what's going on here as Crazy Raccoon, they just steamroll through Falcons here. So, look, so Falcons, is this Winston really what you want to commit to, right? It feels like you maybe kind of have to here, right? This is a really good Winston map. But in the scenarios where we've seen this Winston head-to-head, that's where Crazy Raccoon have gotten the better.
Yeah, it feels like their strength, but Falcons have had to adapt here because they know there's some maps that really still favor Crazy Raccoon's style. Here it is again, Shu just pumping Hanbin with shots every time he goes overhead. It is Junbin, though, that makes a slight misstep and awkwardly lands, but he's with that primal. Crazy Raccoon have everything that they need. It's going to be an extremely volatile next fight with his war chest of ultimates deployed.
Well, I guess that's where, like, if you're Falcons, you could have actually ended up getting rid of the Winston, right? I mean, that could have been an option here, but I guess you feel so confident that you're going to be able to do it. It'll be Kitsune Rush and Rally used here as the payload's actually making pretty good progress.
Yeah, Mano being held in reserve here for Crazy Raccoon. The Rally Bash just staves Hanbin off. Gives some room for Crazy Raccoon to continue to advance with that carpet in the backline. Dangerous for Shu. As good as he is, Stalker, like a Hound of Cerberus let loose, just rips into him.
You wouldn't be able to tell there, but Chorong ended up having the benefits of the nano as well as Lip gonna get a kill with the railgun. Junbin using the primal, so not completely over.
No, that's a big pick off there on Stalker, the instigator in that previous fight. Suzu, Swift Step, all have to be used to get Fielder out of trouble, but Hanbin doesn't have access to that suite of mobility. He can only float and have himself brought back down to earth as Crazy Raccoon continue to build ahead of steam.
It feels like you're gonna stagger out Fielder here as well,
himself
right?
Out. He's hoping to be back in the fight, I get it. Uzul has cooldowns just to stay alive, but now puts him in a weird spawn wave with Stalker. No touch here at all, no chance.
4 minutes plus to complete the map here for Crazy Raccoon is, look, when they can play this Winston in a head-to-head, they start to dominate.
It's hard to feel like the mood hasn't shifted a little bit now. Team Falcons have to mirror to some degree. But this Brig Ana look here for Crazy Raccoon feels like it gives him such an edge in this head-to-head. He's aiming on the hunt. Proper needs to try and control these flank angles for the attackers, but it's scary. It's not just Heesang is going to worry about, it's about keeping Hanbin alive, and Fielder didn't have the throughput. Luckily, Hanbin has primal, but now he's going to try to find a way to repurpose it offensively outside of just staying alive. He slept instantly by the go Shu, of course, and that's now expired. Railgun comes in for Lip now, of course, Overclock at the ready. Pulse, though, was a good connection on Junbin. The tip of the spear snapped clean off of Falcons. They're able to deal with both the aggressors there.
Yeah, I feel like Hanbin was like below 50% HP for a full minute straight there. I mean, he ends up using the primal, gets slept, then gets hit with a bio on the way up. Then he gets hit with some railgun shots with an overclock from Lip. But Falcons does a nice job keeping him alive to stay in the fight, and then also Proper going huge.
That's such an important stop to get. And the architect of it is Proper. Junbin there sees an opportunity to harass Chio, but it's a sound barrier at the ready, and Falcons can use it at their leisure. He'd slip out of the game. Proper circling. Doesn't have to do too much here, but Chio getting picked up by Shu does furrow the brow of the defender somewhat. Proper now needs to get his hands a bit dirty, but Hanbin's out of the game. Dangerous. Chorong here, Rally at the ready, no need to make use of it just yet. He'll take the health pack and look to regroup with the rest of his team, but the harassment here from Proper is a problem. Tries to predictably shield bash, but it doesn't pay off. Junbin now commits the primal. Can't really catch on the Chio, so it feels a bit awkward, but the cart is still on the move. It's still careening towards the final checkpoint.
Dude, the survivability from the backline on Crazy Raccoon is insane because Shu is able to use the nano on the Chorong there, they end up both obviously having the nano in that type of situation, and then if Shu is able to stay alive, Choron could have actually cycled that into a rally as well, right? So you basically become an unkillable support line, you know, for 45 seconds or so. Crazy Raccoon ends up falling in the end. They hold on to that rally like I was talking about, but Falcons sets themselves up. Remind you, this was like above 4 minutes on the clock. Now we're below 2 minutes, so Falcons putting together a pretty respectable hold here towards the end of the map.
2 big stops on this part of the map for Falcons have really started to bleed this clock down a little more. And they're in a favorable position in terms of ult economy as well. Sitting on 4 of them, no less. Proper now here's a rally go off. He's got to be wary of the shield bash now, but looks to get past Chorong, and that's a beautiful stick. Chorong just has to play his own life. Shield up to defend himself, but now they've lost the core of their team composition, and Proper is free to have his way with him. Lip at least shuts him down, but the damage has certainly already been done. And that's 3 defensive fight wins for Falcons in the last phase of the map, burning us down to 1 minute and 15 or so.
And now really nothing for Crazy Raccoon to be able to use. Fielder's gonna have this Kitsune rush to use in a wide open choke here.
All right, that's a Kitsune rush being popped, like you mentioned. Fielder getting at it. Lip just has to get the heck out. The rest of Crazy Raccoon, but that the lion's share of their damage. Again, Proper's kept in check by Lip. He's still got life in those old veins of his. And his Harbin doubling down. Just the perfect opener there for Falcons. Proper, even getting picked off, still carries that momentum forward, and he's back off spawn to take care of Hisang.
Hey, these series that they play against each other have probably aged these players years drastically. It's Falcons now, they have a chance to be able to get a hold here on this map, which just a few minutes ago would have seemed unlikely, as Chio's got this sound barrier, should be able to keep everybody alive. And then also they hold on to this overclock. Stalker and Proper have been nuts. Can Stalker get them home with this big overclock?
Chio knows he's got to be preemptive, not reactive with the beats, lest he get picked off randomly by Lip.
Nano for Lip.
Okay, overclock kill, but it works. Boo! That is a deadly spot to put it to. Stalker headshot. Excessive amounts of damage there from Lip during that overclock now. And they're on the final strength for Crazy Raccoon. He can pop that. Harbin has to use his now just to try and slow things down. He's going to deal with Lip. He doubles back, and Lip's not ready for the Winston to come calling. Harbin here tries to clear the room, clears some space as Proper. At least he's able to deal with Chorong. Crazy Raccoon now at overtime. They're going to go for a Junpin here with a Primal into the back line. Who's he after? Stalker on the Cassidy struggles. Pulse Bomb thrown down, and Junpin is low. He's got to get back. He needs the healing. 10 health, and he gets out alive, but not for long enough. Chio is hot on his heels, and Shu's got nowhere to go. Falcons turn up the heat defensively there, and Crazy Raccoon break on them like water on rock. Still, Proper's got to attend to the cart though. Choron could have slept it through. Left back on the Symmetra, and Chio does fall. It's up to Proper. It always seems to be. He's found his second. The Sims out of the fight. The turrets are going to be an issue. He's got to avoid them to some degree. But eventually, Hisang is going to be out of cooldowns, and Harbin ensures that is punished back on the Rhine. What a way to do it. It's a brilliant stop here for Falcons, and you can see the frustration on the faces of the Raccoons. They know they were so close, and that might come back to bite them.
They had 4:26 to be able to complete the map, and they are not able to get it done. Chorong ends up dying 99% to a rally there towards the end as well.
You see a look in his face. Not a happy camper.
Falcons, they have to feel like they are just, coming away with highway robbery here, right? Like, the first 2 parts of the map, it's just all Crazy Raccoon, and then towards the end, it feels like everything breaks right for Falcons.
It's tough sometimes because we don't want to oversimplify win conditions to simply Lip, or Stalker, as it were, shooting people in the face, but it ended up really being the
sometimes it is that simple.
Yes. Lip got nanoed. They sent him in. Was able to do pretty good work there as well, instantly taking Stalker out of the game, and it looks like Crazy Raccoon would get there. But Proper is so sticky. So hard to get him off that cart in those final moments. And there's a sim just to TP forward for Lip. Crazy Raccoon were already floundering.
Yeah, and we talked about Hanbin's Primal there towards the end, which was pretty massive. But even before then, because Shu was playing the Ana, he actually jumps between Shu and the cart, so we actually can't really see Junbin, and puts his bubble down. That's where you actually see Fielder TP to them, and then being able to take that kill down on the Shu, then Primal. So some nice Winston play towards the end from Hanbin. Stalker comes out ceremonial Widow shot, and now we go back to the Sojourn.
Now Falcons know a map completion here puts them 2 maps clear in this series, and on the doorstep of taking another major OWCS title. Still, Crazy Raccoon defend a little bit further forward than you would otherwise expect, but Lip has already had to get out. Crazy Raccoon, though, don't want to give up this high ground, not for anything. They need Ana to be set up here to be as devastating as possible, but rails like that from Stalker are going to put the fear of God in Crazy Raccoon, and eventually they're going to fall back to Big Earls.
And it feels like for Crazy Raccoon that if you can keep Shu alive, you're good to go here on the defensive side of things. So many great sight lines for the Ana to be able to hit some crazy bio grenades, as we've seen Shu do it. Stalker, no fear, over the top, just hits Junbin in the head.
One of the most important kills you can take in this situation, especially when Hanbin now is free to just force Shu out of line of sight. He doesn't even have to get the kill. Just punish the Ana, force it away, and now you can erect a bit of a stagger here. Probably goes down, but it's the least impactful kill really here that Crazy Raccoon could have found.
We'll see if CR can actually come back, challenge this as Shu is building up towards a nano rather quickly. You see players just coming around the corner here, taking some damage. Shu able to farm this up.
Crazy Raccoon know they're going to fight in quickly, but that's another massive pick from Stalker. It's been absolutely sublime from him so far. Harvey gets hit with everything, including the kitchen sink, and still is going to be kept alive. There's a Suzu there for him by Fielder, but gives up his life in order to do so. Junbin gets nanoed. Stalker still makes sure his team stays in the fight, though. He's looking scary. And an overclock waiting in the wings. A cheeky sleep, but is the follow-up going to be there? Shu is low, but there's so many reinforcements for the Falcons today. We'll continue through the map.
And for Falcons, you don't end up using anything there, Mitch. Literally nothing. So now you come in here, 5 ultimates. We talked about how good Crazy Raccoon's time was through these first 2 parts of the map, and then they kind of falter at the end. Falcons in a position to sit just as good of a time.
Crazy Raccoon now perhaps concern, mild desperation even starting to set in. Junbin turns around, see Hanbin there, realizes he just doesn't have the bandwidth to deal with the Winston right now. Propper's already going to cause enough problems on his own, and Stalker's holding on to that overclock from Prior. Proper down though. Heesang deals with him, is up on this left side flank. Soundberry makes it harder to get these kills, but oh, Stalker doesn't realize where the pulse is. That's right behind him, but he's trained forward on the rest of Crazy Raccoon. Great tracer sequence here for Heesang. Difference maker indeed.
Yet Hanbin ends up using the primal here. You still have Fielder alive, and he ends up falling towards the end. Hanbin makes it out with his life. I was like, if Fielder is able to maybe TP out there to Hanbin, you can have both DPS coming off of spawn rather quickly with both ultimates. Maybe you can actually kind of extend that fight, but once you end up losing Fielder, it is now a full team reset.
Like I mentioned how many ultimates Falcons took into this phase of the map. That is certainly not the case now. Both the support ultimates out of the game. Hanbin, a big blow that he takes as he, before he even lands there on that high ground, means he has to turn around and get out, and that is stunning. Shio there, just unaware that his demise was looming so close. Lip here can play safely to the edge of the map, and it will be another drawn-out fight for Crazy Raccoon. Now, they've finally been able to suck some of this momentum away from the attackers.
They definitely started to stabilize now, right? They lose Junbin really early on their first point defense, but now that they've been able to win a fight, control this high ground, now you're starting to see this come. With that Ana starting to get rolling. That time was Hanbin actually hit with a bio grenade. They're able to finish him off, and Crazy Raccoon now has a huge ultimate advantage.
Junbin here gets out, got his job done, played close, keeps Falcons somewhat contained. Big rails here for Lip. At some point, Falcons have to get to him, but there's so many layers of defense. Blast doors, one after another, protect Lip now, and there it is! Another nano being given over to him. Shu knew Lip would be the target of scrutiny, and he gives him everything he needs to stave off the offenders. That is dirty work.
I mean, Lip is hard enough to kill without the benefits of the nano. Cleans up proper there towards the end as he's starting to heat up now on the soldier.
Suffice to say, those Lip doubters feeling a little more subdued now. Again, he's got the benefit of being able to play for this high ground, of Shu at his back, Chorong there to protect him as well. And he's a problem. Falcons have not figured a way to adequately deal with him without overexposing themselves to Junbin and the rest of Crazy Raccoon, who, of course, has a primal. Dare I say, a bit of a Sony ultimate. He makes space, slows Falcons up, gives them pause for thought. Now drops down, now he's getting serious. Stalker barely gets away with it. Nano will claim him in the end. It's Slip once more. Dude. On the right side of the kill feed.
I mean, they are just getting farmed coming through the choke, where, you know, Shu is able to just throw down the bio that bounces, connects with a few players. Then they're all dispersed. They're running into a rally as we'll take a look here. It's a replay of Lip with that nano.
And again, it's a sleep there that sets up such an easy pick on Hanbin. The first kill for Lip was massive, and the rest of it is just theatrics, really. Soundberry here for Falcons. They saw the pulse bomb encroaching, and Stalker has been able to find two. By the way, that's the backline accounted for with one fell swoop. He's saying at least is elusive and is able to answer field of it with Jumpin out of the game. Falcons at least keep themselves in this. They stay competitive. Remember, a map completion is really all they need. If they can build this momentum a little further, get a checkpoint here within a reasonable span of time, it's still on the table for them to go 3-1.
So they lose their supports, but they'll end up getting back in the fight as Turing on the Weaver probably just pulls somebody a little bit closer, get them out of the spawn, as Hanbin will be able to maybe use his Primal Rage, block players from coming out of this choke.
It will be the easy option here. He opts to step back here, wary of the whip shot that eventually comes in. But Akant's been moving up. See, Heesang tries to waylay it somewhat. Geo will be a nuisance, knocking asunder anybody who tries to jump up here. All right, well, Stalker's going to pop this overclock now. Lip gets a nano, doesn't quite have the OC developed, but here it comes. Primal Rage for Hanbin means he's not really an attractive target. And he juggles Lip into oblivion. Here is Falcons now. It will be close to overtime, but they shall have themselves this checkpoint barring anything ridiculous. Stalker, great Suzu comes in there for Fielder. Means that Junbin really can only impotently flail at trying to bring down some of these players. Stalker may have gone missing, but now he will be surrounded by the remains of this Falcon lineup. There's enough to work with. Good boot back on Junbin. Will deny him access towards that Lucio, but time has been bought. Is it enough? Doesn't seem that way. As a second checkpoint is accounted for. Falcons, 90 seconds to end the map.
It's like shades of that old Dallas Fuel team where it looked like every fight, you know, it's like, oh, there's no way they're going to win this. They got everything to go their way. And they're ending up pulling it out in the end. Okay, so they end up having both support ultimates here coming around this corner. Proper with a pulse bomb as well. This is definitely doable for Falcons.
They've got to be quick about it, though. Like you mentioned, the pulse bomb here in a pinch could be huge.
With a Malga swap, too.
Boasting one of his, that's right. Malga comes out for Falcons. They are dead serious about getting this map done. Will it be enough? Recall here for Heesang now as Hanbin comes charging on in, bustling his way through, and Lip just has to give that ground up. Now returning to the car, Junbin needs to be addressed as he dives in, and Hanbin has to chase him, has to be reactive, but he's a second too late to save Chingo. Shu, though, is traded out. Stalker's able to find a massive pick across the map, and Proper's Pulse Bomb is primed and ready. He sees options here, plenty of them. Chorong's shield brought down, he opts not to go for the kill. He knows he can get it done in theory without the Pulse Bomb, but Chorong will show him. And Heesang dealing with Stalker now means that Falcons are a little bit awkward, a little bit off kilter now with only 3 players up.
But Falcons end up holding on to their beat. They don't have to beat there, and they're able to keep Hanbin alive. So difficult to deal with this Malga, as it will be on Shu, potentially hit one of those big bios.
How do they access Shu? He's sitting so comfortably in the back line with the shield of Chorong in his face. Lip is also going to be there for deterrence. Like you said, it's a sound barrier that Falcons are pinning their hopes on. Geo has to come up with the goods, but Shu is building yet another nano. Lip trying to deal with the pulse of Proper. It goes wayward anyway, and they get to sleep on the Tracer. That is Shu finding the hit he needs. Lip does go down, and Stalker commands the field now in terms of that long-range hit scare, but it's just not enough. It's peak, folks. Whichever way you slice it, it doesn't get any better than this. Team Falcons now will be reduced to their dregs, the final numbers, and we've got an even series on our hands.
For a second there, man, it looked like Crazy Raccoon was gonna let that one slide through their hands, but they come out with a win in the end. The Malga swap a little cheeky there from Falcons, maybe just trying to get it over the line towards the end, and they never wilted. But Crazy Raccoon, they tie it up.
Decisive. And this is the kind of map where we got to see the very best of Crazy Raccoon, right? It was that Brig Ana composition. Lip was a headliner, though.
Yeah.
Great play with that Sojourn. Of course, it's good to see Junbin on the Winston. And look close at points. The Malga switch for Falcons to try and secure the end of the map. It's audacious, and frankly, it just didn't work out. Proper got hit with a massive sleep as he tries to go in on that last fight, and from there, it felt like Falcons couldn't get back in.
I mean, Shu being able to control that high ground, that range on the Ana, that is the perfect spot for him to be. You could not ask for a better combination for that Ana, have that high ground, so much range where there's no Winston on the other side that's going to be able to dive you. It's really just that Tracer that's a threat. You also end up getting the benefits of a Nano and your Nano Chorong to be able to help you, so really great advantage there for Crazy Raccoon towards the end.
Here are some of the moments from that previous game. Obviously, Hanbin on this Winston. dealing with a pretty fearsome backline in Chorong, and in this example is able to cut through them pretty comfortably. It was a great stop of Team Falcons. There's a reason to feel confident about their ability to turn around on the attack side and then win things out. And with Junpei being the first casualty in that fight, you can already start to see the wheels turning for this Falcon squad. They had a ton of tempo that just abandoned them in the second phase of the map. So this man on your screen.
The second part of the map, they were getting dominated. Their Lip was able to control that high ground. They were having a difficult time even just getting through the choke. They have a better push here towards the second part of the map. They definitely could have been in a situation where they had a great chance to win it.
Yeah, I mean, they were ultimately, knocking on the door of that second checkpoint with, scant seconds left. They're basically in overtime now. And of course,
we're wide open now.
A full reset of the map pool. So I guess some silver lining there for Falcons, losing that map. They get to peruse the entirety of the map pool and sort of decide where they're going.
You go Lijiang Tower, right? I mean, if you want to play Maga-based compositions and things like that, you go Lijiang Tower.
Absolutely.
So that would be... I mean, you could run it back on like Runasapi, Suravasa, like one of those.
Oasis
like, you go back to Oasis, right? But for me, Lijiang Tower is the clear option here.
And again, we might end up seeing almost a full reset in this series. I mean, it virtually becomes a best of three now.
Lijiang, you can ban a tank. You don't necessarily need to ban the Winston, right?
Yep.
If you think that they'll just play the Winston into your Maga and you feel like Lijiang has an advantage, that also saves you that ban for potentially down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It is huge that you could select a map that doesn't require you to use that really crucial Winston ban. Take Amalgamira. I mean, going back to Oasis though, I mean, the Amalgamira didn't actually favor Falcons. They found their success in that map when they switched their comps and Harbin actually got on the Diva, which again, I mean, is fine. That's also an option too if you're Falcons going there. But that was the one concerning sign I guess we saw early in the series, is that it was actually Falcons that were forced to move off their preferred comp. But straight away, we saw Crazy Raccoon ban the Malga. So it's like, okay, they were able to be successful in that comp, but they don't trust themselves to be able to do it over a larger sample size, and they'd rather play to their strengths, which were definitely displayed here. With the map pool being completely open, and this virtually now being a first to two series, it really feels like a full reset. You see how quickly Crazy Raccoon got out of those seats, bro. They're hitting the showers briefly, taking a breather, trying to recollect themselves. And again, in the past, I'll just be straight up. In the past, our finals of our major tournaments have not been particularly close. Like, we've had some pretty big blowouts, but in this era...
I like how you, I have to be honest, like they didn't know the scores of the previous ones.
I mean, like, you want to try and sell it, obviously, because it's a legacy here. We've been very fortunate to cover so many of those finals, but in this era of Crazy Raccoon and Falcons, we feel like we've always given us some magic. They haven't always been close series, but if you throw it back to last year, on multiple occasions, these two teams gave us their very best. It's really the peak of competition between these two rosters, and there's so much to take away from every single game.
What's wild is in the past as well, like when we've had like teams that consistently make finals, eventually you see them make changes and they're like, we feel like we can get better here or there. I don't know where, unless they're stealing somebody from the other side or something, right? I mean, like what are you doing?
Falcons have trimmed down their numbers.
Like, are you just trading players between these two teams just for fun? Like, I mean, like,
what are you doing?
Who's
floating in the ether somewhere? Merit and someone.
Yeah.
Right? There are players out there, like, this
They're probably in a VIP box watching.
Exactly.
Like,
it's a separate conversation, right? But, we're seeing, 10 incredible players here in the server, sometimes 11 if you count subs. I'll throw margin in there, make it 12. But there are incredible players out there as well in the ecosystem looking for their chance to compete on the stage, just like we saw from Nightmare. We're taking a break here. Chance for you to reset to at home and get excited about the rest of this series, because it's going to look a lot like this. Saddle up, don't go too far. We'll be back with what might be the conclusion of this incredible grand final. Welcome back, folks, to our grand final here, the OWCS Champions Clash. Now, obviously, we've been in a holding pattern for a little bit. There's pretty intense discussion occurring down on the stage. We'll deliver you the details about that in a moment, but for now, we've got a game to play. So we're going to dive straight in, and we'll give you some clarification as we go along.
All you need to know is we are back. We got a game going on. First ban here is going to be Falcons. That'll be Brig being gone. And then for Crazy Raccoon, it will be Tracer taken out of the game as we move on to Esperanca.
Now, this is ostensibly a Falcons pick, his Esperanca map. And they will be walking out with his Malga look. So again, the two very distinct styles of these rosters will be pitted against each other in what has to feel like an absolutely pivotal map.
Yeah, no Tracer available here for Proper, right? But you'll be able to play that Genji and get aggressive here with Hanbin. It's like the first time in this series we've seen Proper being able to pilot that Genji.
All right, Crazy Raccoon here, perched up on this little causeway. Jubin opts out of the fight though early as Crazy Raccoon are happy enough here, drawing Falcons out of rotation. And this is going to play out like Runasapi, folks. It's going to be Crazy Raccoon attempting to punish a misposition of this rather unmaneuverable Malga. He's saying just cops it there from Proper. Sees Farah fighting a little bit too close to the ground, but Chorong at least is able to take the trade.
And if you remember back to Runasapi, it was Crazy Raccoon getting off to a great start, being able to get a big lead and advantage, but in the end it was Falcons who was able to come out on top with that Malga composition and run it down.
Stalker backed up here, takes a pretty big blow, but Crazy Raccoon don't have the extra gas in the tank to reach him, so instantly he's back in the fight, already keeping Lip's head laid low. A good rail though from the direction of Lip. Well, again, keeps Stalker honest once more. Really slow start to this game as both teams really locked in the neutral for the time being, but Proper goes a little bit low and Falcons starting to buckle under this pressure. Hanbin, low as he is still trying to negotiate from a position of strength, but Shu's dealt with Chio already. Now it's going to be even harder to keep that bulky Malga in the frame.
Yeah, Chio's not going to be able to live in that type of position, right? As the Juno underneath that underpass, and although Hanbin gets on top of Lip, it will be the rest of Falcons falling to the pressure of the Farah.
That's the opening they're looking for. It's off the first pick, of course, that Crazy Raccoon were able to get, and you could see just that trade of poke damage heavily favoring Crazy Raccoon there, and it's part of this might be on virtue of Proper being on the Genji. When it's time to full commit, he can absolutely dive in there with Hanbin, but he's saying it's so favored in these longer, drawn-out engagements in this neutral poke wars. He's developed a barrage already, man.
We'll see if he can get in position to use that barrage. He's going to get over to the high ground. This is going to be the Kitsune rush here for Fielder and co, but the barrage going to get nothing.
He's saying found himself in a pretty risky position, but is able to just to clean up Stalker after the fact that mobile barrage for Farah really changes the complexion of the way these compositions interact. And that's a second consecutive fight win here, I'd say, for Crazy Raccoon. Shu is able to make sure the plane is landed here, and now they're threatening a checkpoint.
So you're going to be able to use this overclock your Lip as they come out of the spawn. The Kitsune rush available to use here as well, as checkpoint would be massive here. And the one advantage I would say you have here for Crazy Raccoon, obviously difficult to play that Winston into the Malga, is there some really nice natural high ground that forces the Malga into the open space, forces you to use those cooldowns early.
Crazy Raccoon have obviously tracked an orbital ray here, so Falcons obviously are going to be primed to fight a brawl style here. So Crazy Raccoon want to poke them down, work on the periphery, get good damage, and then look to commit. But here's the orbital ray coming out. Team Falcons happy now to use this to take control of the bot once more, move the fight back to neutral territory. But his blade from Proper doesn't do too much other than frighten Crazy Raccoon. They're glad to back up, but Junbin snaps back in, and that's the maneuverability of this Crazy Raccoon composition. But they see an opening, they will take advantage.
Yet even when that orbital ray comes on through, right from Chia, they just run away. They kite it completely. The blade also Proper. We see him just on the hunt looking for anything. A lot like what we saw on Runasapi. It is Crazy Raccoon off to a fantastic start.
Wholesale changes to the composition here for Falcons. Farah, Sojourn, mirroring the DPS. Still keeping this Malga in the mix, but at least now Falcons have some more poke potential. They've got to get back into the map though. Stalker's got to start connecting these shots, keep Junbin just out of that full confidence he's been able to display over the last few moments. He'll drop a bubble and get back on the low ground now, and Crazy Raccoon aren't really incentivized to push too aggressively past this point. They want to contain Falcons and force errors from them again.
So, see now, how do you bounce back here? If you're Falcons, it'll be a cage fight here, trying to get anybody, and it's just, I mean, look, they're so slippery, this Crazy Raccoon lineup. You not connect with nobody. Proper and Stalker take huge damage here from Heesang.
Kitsune Rush is going to allow Falcons to get under the causeway here, and Heesang eventually is brought down by Hanbin. Lip has been out of the fight for some time. He was forced to fold away from Stalker, pressuring that right side of the map. So it's 4 players here for Crazy Raccoon and a sound barrier that was supposed to keep them in the fight, but they've got no interest in taking this engagement, Matt.
Yes, they have to back up as now finally Falcons, right? With some changes, right? You moved away from the Genji here. Stalker up on that high ground, now playing the Farah. So that potentially gives the option for Proper, right? You can play that Sojourn, but then also kind of flex over to some other things.
I feel like like the comp switch has definitely helped Falcons for the time being. It was filled as Kitsune Rush that got them within striking distance on Crazy Raccoon, and there's the primer now being drawn out of Junbin. Stalker went pretty low, and Lip is able to find Fielder instead with the railgun. Safe landing here for Junbin right in front of Proper, and he'll make sure the job is done right. They've lost the Winston, but Crazy Raccoon still have that player advantage, and Harvin now is in a very compromising position. He'll eventually suffer for it.
So Crazy Raccoon, they get back up on the high ground. Junbin had to use that primal. He gets hit with a big railgun shot from Proper really early, and that forces him kind of almost in a little bit of a panic, maybe a reaction to using that primal, but knows you need to be able to fight that high ground, right? If Falcons can start controlling the high ground, forcing Crazy Raccoon to be the aggressor, right, with this composition, that's where maybe the Mauga can start to get rolling.
And we're back to the status quo for most of this map so far. We're 6 minutes in, and we've only seen so much of Esperanca. Falcons burst their way back in. There's going to be a barrage here for Stalker. Keep an eye out for it now as Hisek finds his first. And this is not an answer for Team Falcons. They are silenced. An easy cleanup. Hisek with 3 off the fight. And Crazy Raccoon will extend this lead.
So we will see now as Crazy Raccoon making a push here towards the Falcons spawn. Man, this is just so similar to Runasapi. Is Chorong will end up having this beat, right? Potentially this beat could get you over the line, but I actually like this. They wrap, because this is a horrible position for the Mauga to fight from, right? This low ground to high ground, not where the Mauga wants to be.
Yeah, they want to contain him. Abuse this topographical advantage. Team Falcons have to find a way to break this deadlock, and it might involve Stalker wrapping around, but that's risky. Puts him in a solo position where one correct railgun hit from Lip could end it for the Farah. So piecemeal. Falcons are trying to take this task on. Harping those steps forward, trying to charge on, and you can see Stalker still teasing at the fringes of the lineup, and as Junbin down, he gets drawn into the muddy mess underneath the bridge. Chiyo out of the fight here, but it's not enough for Crazy Raccoon to be going on. Such that the barrage is going to be invested now, but Lip is able to find 2. It's good. Likely not enough, but Falcons have been forced to invest just to get back into the map.
And still about 60 meters. I mean, you got to get that checkpoint as well. Far behind in here is Falcons. Is a lot like how on Runasapi, where they were able to get a really nice play from Stalker, took out Hiseng, who had a barrage, and that started to snowball things. Feels like they need a play to turn the tides. Maybe it is going to be Proper here with this overclock.
Lip slides away, Junbin immediately beeline for the back line. Proper wants to step forward now and sees a sound barrier that could make it a little bit tougher, but he knows he's going to do damage. That's his job. That is his prime directive. Chiyo is down, but Proper doesn't seem to mind. Sees Junbin looking like a decent morsel here, but opts to circumvent him instead. Into the back line, trying to punish the support. Shu dancing the bubble thrown down there by Junbin. And what a perfect answer for Crazy Raccoon. And now Falcons, eyes roll skyward as they realize they've got to play from that oppressive low ground position again, potentially.
I imagine Crazy Raccoon is going to move that bot to that position and then back up yet again as they've been able to fight. Having that Mauga challenge up there on the high ground. Sick shot there from Lip as, they take this high ground position, force that Mauga to come through that choke. Now, this is such a tough position, right? There's no way that Falcons can access that high ground.
And this time, Falcons don't have that wealth of ultimates that they can use to bully their way into the map. KFaras trade each other out. It's a rare sight to see. Stalker and Hisang with Pyrrhic eliminations on one another. Keeps us a little bit in this deadlock scenario. Lip is looming large with an overclock should it be needed. Harvin takes a lot more damage, I think, than he bargained for in that position and has to get back to safety. Chiyo has a beat here. Can he use it to keep his team standing? He pops it straight away. Harvin belatedly does at least receive the overshield. Chorong does not have that ultimate to work with, but a Kitsune Rush means that the healing throughput is going to be there for Shu. He's saying play safe, low to the ground for now, and then opts to play on this high right ground. Junbin sees a backline opportunity and Proper gets absolutely strung up.
And Chorong's got the beat here. You're going to continue to keep this rolling for Crazy Raccoon. Stalker ends up, taking himself out there on that Winston bubble. And Hisang has a barrage as you come around the corner here. Under 30 seconds left. This map has been all Crazy Raccoon.
It is wild, and Crazy Raccoon might be the first team in this series to win back-to-back maps. That surely puts them in pole position. Hisang folds away, sees the Mauga come in his direction, but also aware that Stalker is playing up above that building. It's a barrage with no one really to take the damage. Harminos kept his head down. He has to stay inside for now, but Proper gets rid of the offending Farah. Lip carefully, studiously trying to find an opening here with these rails, but it's going to be Falcons breaking back into the game. And now, They need to make a repeat performance of what we saw in Runasapi. A long climb back into the game, but they've taken the first steps.
I mean, well, the hardest part about this is they don't actually even have the checkpoint at this moment, right? Is be the Forest taking each other out with the Rex up in the sky. Is now we will see if Falcons can make this run back. I think Proper is scared that they're going to kind of like wrap around and take a really early fight.
Falcons have to win out the entire map from here. We've so rarely seen a comeback of this magnitude. The odds are surely stacked against them. But they've got a couple of ultimates to get them rolling. They've just accrued themselves that sound barrier. Proper goes deep, looking for the fire pick off here. You've just got to take the options when they're served up, but Chorong is down. Sound barrier, cage fight, overclock all deployed as Falcons can't afford to keep anything in reserve. Jumbin only found Proper there, so Crazy Raccoon definitely on the losing end of that fight. But that's to be expected at this point. And there's still a lot of map to play, including a checkpoint, including a butt scratch. That's going to take time.
And Crazy Raccoon, they end up investing their Kitsune rush there into that fight, but they're going to gain a little bit of time, right? The bot is going to stop. It's going to do the animation, and then we'll continue to move on forward. So this is going to allow Crazy Raccoon, the bot's going to take a really long time to get a fight in that choke.
No more high ground really on this map, though, that Crazy Raccoon can abuse. Conversely, Team Falcons have to drop off this bridge eventually if they want to keep the bot moving, so they can't make use of that advantage spot at all. Stalker pops over the top, though, instantly garners the attention of Lip, who has an overclock active. Right now, it's damage on Harmon. That's going to be more than enough. Lip sees an opportunity to go for the kill, and he gets it. It's the Malgo out of the game, and Field to fall. Stalker takes himself out of the action, and Crazy Raccoon deliver on their promise to come firing into this second half of the series with a win on Esperanca.
They end up taking a hard-fought map there on Esperanca as they win 2 in a row here against Falcons. So even playing that dive into that Maga can be very difficult, but they did an excellent job of taking fights where they had a huge advantage, right? Didn't want to give up that high ground, forcing that Maga to play from the low ground, and that consistent poke was almost impossible to deal with.
And a map win here in map 5 means everything. It means that Crazy Raccoon will potentially have a chance to win the series on their map pick. Yes, Falcons will get to choose now. That'll bring us even in this series. But that advantage for Crazy Raccoon is a big deal, especially now with the map pool being reset as it was.
Yeah, and that was a Falcons map pick, but I also want to give you a little bit of context here at home about what happened here with that map pick after we look through some of the highlights. There's a little bit of spice coming with that one as we take a look, and this is the great spots that we see Crazy Raccoon fighting out of, right? Very difficult for that Maga to go low to high. Not a lot of mobility, not really any mobility at all amongst the team, and then moving into that far up poke gets all those Maga cooldowns down, and then that's where Junbin and Ko can go in. Nasty stuff.
What a ridiculous moment there. So worrying the chance, looking back over some of these replays, obviously you're probably wondering why we're not gone back to Runasapi. What was the delay? Obviously, there's some discussion on stage about some specific rules and some timings, Matt.
Yeah, so that map was a Falcons map pick, but they actually submitted the pick in late. So you have 60 seconds. I believe Crazy Raccoon, they're timing that thing really good. I believe it comes in a few seconds after. So Crazy Raccoon kind of calls out on it. That actually has the map being randomized for that.
That's the ruling on that, yeah.
But the map pick that they would have had anyway was Esperanca, so they kind of got quite fortunate there. But just a little extra drama added to the series.
Yeah, probably not what we expected to see here, but for Falcons, that's still an issue. That's the map that they were hoping to pick, and they come off decidedly second best.
Yeah.
Tough pill to swallow, especially now that they're staring down the barrel. This is a verified match point scenario now for Crazy Raccoon.
I imagine they get their map pick in on time for this one. So
yeah, I mean,
they have to know that.
It was a situation which, like, Crazy Raccoon, they see it comes in, they call for a rules enforcement. They say, we want this to be policed as per the letter of the rules. And in a situation like this where timing is
I kind of like it from Crazy Raccoon, if I'm honest. Like, you were playing quite well. Your head dived down, right? Let's get going. Let's get into the next one. Let's kind of cycle this one through, right? Let's keep things going in our direction. We see the map pick there. It ends up working out for Falcons that they end up getting the map that they originally would have selected, but they don't get a win on it.
Yeah, bizarre that they actually end up on the exact map they wanted, but a lot to talk about there. Obviously, Falcons are playing the Malga composition. They're opting not to try and match these Winstons whatsoever. can have a look at the map set here now and see that Circuit Royal has been picked by Falcons now. Again, another map pick that we discussed pretty extensively, actually, sort of coming into this. So,
and do you think there's a sub here for Crazy Raccoon potentially, right? This is where we would potentially see Max play. Where we've seen him play, play that Ramacho. Ooh, I was going to say play the Ramacho, but the Ramacho's gone.
So just want to also, another clarification. Obviously, our map set graphic can sometimes indicate that, with the reset, you can select the same map again. That obviously, for those that are keeping track at home, is not the case. Yeah. So we couldn't have gone back to Runasapi. We can't repeat maps that have already been played in a separate series. Even though we have like a refreshed looking graphic, the teams are still prevented from returning to those same battlegrounds.
But two of the key maps that we talked about, right, with Circuit and Lijiang still obviously available. So it will be a Juno ban from Crazy Raccoon that comes on out. Max also coming on in for CR. So what are you looking at here? I mean, you could play like, you can still play like Maga, right? You can play probably Sigma here, right?
Nightmare, yes, you could. Nightmare tried to play Winston here. They actually had it banned against him the next time they tried to run it back. Now, I don't know if that's a particularly amazing option, but with Juno ban, it also makes you think a little bit about how you're crafting your backline, right? It does actually open up both the sort of the Anna Brig Winston strategy and also the Kiriko Lucio look that you can definitely go in that direction. But it still begs the question over whether, the Winston comp is good to come into. Against the poke comp, the Sigma, it's very, very hard to play that dive style on this particular map. It's really hard.
Yeah, we've seen teams go to Mei throughout this event on this map as well. We've seen
with the Sigma setup.
With the Sigma as well. So the Mei potentially an option here for Circuit Royale, as this is an absolute must-win for Falcons. Tournament lives on the line.
Now these guys are familiar with playing 6 maps in a final, right? Yeah. They've been here before, but in an arena like this, the adrenaline, it tends to leave you pretty drained. We get into the business end of the series now, and here there is no more second chances for Falcons. They make one wrong step here, and they will cede that Champions Clash title over to Crazy Raccoon.
So these teams just probably despise losing to each other. Look, you're calling somebody out on a light map selection. You despise playing that team.
Yeah, they're like they're sticklers for the rules. Now you're getting me out here with a bit of venom, I think.
You're taking the rule book out.
But again, the Ramacho ban, super reasonable.
Yes.
It's the answer to the Sigma comps for teams that want to be more proactive. That said, Crazy Raccoon did not go in the Ramacho direction when we last saw this map from them. They were content to play that Sigma setup. They were content to, May wall up and just buy a lot of space, make use of their poke DPS composition. But both sides have good Sojourn and Farah looks, right? Yes. We might see those DPS lines pitted against each other, if not May.
And I feel like for Crazy Raccoon that Lip has come alive the later portion of this series, right? We were talking back, you think to Suravasa, where Stalker was really coming on, and you're like, hey, Lip started picking up towards the second half of that, and then I feel like as you went into like Brute 66 and things like that, started to play really well on the Sojourn.
Absolutely something to keep in the back of your mind. We, oddly enough, saw like a Baptiste man on this map earlier on in the tournament. I think that was against Virtus Pro.
Yeah.
No team has really wanted to go in that direction. No team has really tried. Also, that we've seen Zen banned on this map as well, so haven't really seen that rolled out again in those slower, more poke-oriented compositions. It's definitely something you can go for. That was Lip, for those wondering, in his old Shanghai Dragons raiment. 3 maps, 1 here for Crazy Raccoon. Again,
it feels like the momentum's going their way.
You can feel the shift in that previous map. The fact that Falcons were playing so much of that game from the low ground, just sort of trapped there by Crazy Raccoon, who just said, we've got the better comp here. You guys want to play Malga? We're just gonna... You have no verticality with your tank.
Right.
You have to basically, in order to win the fight, you need to Kitsune rush forward, charge onto the bot, force us to fight you down there, and then push through. And that's a cadence you can only go for every, like 90 seconds max? Like, it's very, very hard to sort of be an active participant.
And even if you get close, if you're Falcons, you can just kite if you are a Crazy Raccoon, right? I mean, everybody has mobility. Even if you start to close that gap, they're just going to make that gap even further, right? You're going to be able to Sojourn slide away. The bar is up in the sky, right? You can get that Winston out of there pretty quick. So not a lot of opportunities for Falcons to get things going.
And you kind of surface the idea of taking Malga onto a map like this. You suffer the same problems a little bit on the attack side of Circuit Royal. On that second phase of the map, you've got to literally climb uphill, and it's extremely oppressive. Amalga Comp can lose valuable minutes on that part of the map, just trying to get in position to take a fight. And they're so reliant on that Kiriko ultimate, which will likely be a factor here with Juno being banned. We're heading into the map in just a few moments, folks. Crazy Raccoon have an opportunity to close the series out here and ascend to the victors of your Champions Clash. It's a match point for them. And they're the ones that had to desperately fight their way through the lower bracket. We get a hover the Baptiste already. One of the first outings for that we would have seen at this tournament, if that remains to be the case. And Fielder's showing us one of his own specialties there. The Moira would be quite the look.
Hey, dude, the Shu Baptiste is no joke. I mean,
it's legendary.
If he comes out on this, that is a bit of a curveball there.
That Havana moment, I think, is a play that no Overwatch fan of that era will ever forget. He's dangerous on that pick.
And the Bap is pretty nasty in combination with that Mei as well, right? Mei Sigma already very difficult to kill, now with that Immortality field. So it looks like potentially Falcons, see if they decide to play a Bap of their own.
So Crazy Raccoon do subscribe to the poke doctrine here and pedal max out on the Sigma. Baptiste for Shu. Fielder also going in that direction. It's a little different the way it plays with the D.Va. Harmden will have to return for a refuel in terms of health points to get that guaranteed healing.
And something that we've seen from Sigmas when they play against that D.Va is being able to cycle that accretion, right? Being able to kind of like reduce that cooldown on the accretion with the perk and then being able to just kind of constantly have those rocks because the D.Va can do nothing against it.
Falcons want to take space. They've got to use this D.Va well. Remember that accretion is so important in this matchup, and there it is. He's saying deals with Chio already. Falcons need the speed. They don't have the ability to actually put pressure on a Crazy Raccoon without those burst moments.
Yeah, and you're going to have to use that defense matrix, right, to get past some of this damage that comes on down to allow the Cropper to get in position on the Genji. I do wonder if Falcons like read this. I wonder if Falcons maybe thought there was going to be like a Pharah on the other side or something and being able to get a little bit more use out of that D.Va.
Good pressure here for Proper. He dives in, but that durability's there for Crazy Raccoon. An Immortality field now thrown down to give Hisang a moment to be top back up, but an Air Matrix is a scary prospect indeed. Maywall buys valuable seconds for Crazy Raccoon to get themselves set up around this, but they've still got to answer the threat of the damage. There's the kinetic grasp, but Proper's able to circumvent that for the most part now, and oh, buddy, it's not a good look for Shu. Pressure down, Air Matrix pop, and nowhere to make good use of it. It's that proper Genji, man.
Yeah, filthy stuff. It's an early Amp Matrix there from Fielder. Gets him around the corner. We've seen that in just kind of so many games here on Circuit Royale where you get that Amp Matrix on that corner. Players, there's nowhere for them to hide. Max already had used the kinetic grass, not enough to be able to kind of keep him up through that. And Shu uses his Amp Matrix towards the end, so not going to have that for this next key fight.
Very reactive use of that ability there. Proper just has such a great opportunity at identifying, or job rather, of identifying the window to go in, fully commit against this poke composition. Here's the blade, speaking of going in, Proper's going for it. Sound barrier now mutually for both sides, so Proper needs to take a sidebar. And the Gravitic Flux being used mostly as a deterrent here. Falcon's so mobile, no one's going to be caught in it. Max has to be satisfied with the space he's been able to buy with that ultimate. But a self-destruct comes in over the top. What a scary prospect, but everybody on the defender side splits. Fielder brought down. Immortality field not enough to keep him alive under the eyes of Lip. Anatomy Falcons grinding to a halt.
It's a lot thrown in there from Crazy Raccoon, but it also feels like a little bit of a must-win fight, right? You end up losing that there. This card is going to be basically at that second checkpoint. There's going to be a ton of time available for Falcons. So you have to invest heavily there. You absolutely must win that fight. As also, Choron comes out now on the brink, so want to play a little bit slower.
Really defensive slant here for Crazy Raccoon, but again, against the D.Va, it's a pretty reasonable option.
Yeah.
Especially with those perks making Inspire procs off Whip Shot hits even better. Maywall thrown up, Air Matrix deployed by Shu. Fielder, with lacking a prior opportunity, goes for it now, and Choron falls to a disruptor shot of all things. Overclock now for Stalker, finally moves out into the open to guarantee good sidelines. And Max knows his time is short. Even under the Immortality field, he lacked the backup.
It is a very sturdy comp there for Crazy Raccoon, right? I mean, with the Immortality field plus the Sigma brick combination, at that time you had a Mei in the mix, but feels like you were just kind of inevitably waiting to die, right? As now you get a Genji in the mix here for Crazy Raccoon. Give a little bit more of a threat to Falcons.
Can he hang there with what Proper's been able to provide so far? It's been a true showing already on this Genji. And there was another blade ready to go. This time, no sound barrier to blunt it. He's looking for a way in. Already, Max taking a pretty decent amount of poke damage, and it's time for it now. Burst of main tank is what Proper says. Get rid of the Sigma, and they get the job done. Max out of the game now, and Crazy Raccoon are in absolute tatters. Hanvin's having to give up his mech for this, surely. It's a very convincing attack side fight as this card still on the move.
And Proper puts a swing of the Dragon Blade into Max. It's actually a nice immortality field thrown in there from Shu. But as that immortality field comes down, Hanbin there with Proper deals with it. And then Proper just continues to go to work with that blade as the cart continues to move here towards the end. Proper doing a nice job controlling this high ground.
Yeah, again, Proper just, timing the accretion. Maybe knows that Max doesn't have the chance to hit him with that. An immortality field's already forced. This is a great result for Falcons, and they're going to continue to apply the pressure. Running forward in numbers now at a sound barrier. They can know that the end of the map is so close. Get into spawn, trap Crazy Raccoon out of the game, and make sure they get a clean finish here. The venture picked up by Lippin. In here comes Max, switches over towards the D.Va, and Chorong is on the Ana. Weird looks here for Crazy Raccoon, but whatever it takes to keep them in the map, they will do. Max is demeched. Lacan snuck in. Just under 3 minutes to play.
Oh, that is lightning fast there from Falcons. Max comes in, they play a Sigma composition that's a little bit slower in design. And Falcons does not care at all. They run it right past that Sigma, playing a D.Va look with Proper on the Genji. That's a lot of time in the time bank here, man.
It's really not something you often think about when you imagine poke compositions playing in like a Sigma style mirror. But the Genji does give you the option, because sometimes the poke comps, they get good damage, but there's enough time for, you know, the receiving team to throw a Mei wall up, throw an immortality field down, get that player top back up, and we just, you know, move back into a deadlocked scenario. But Proper just has the presence of mind to know, hey, I can actually get in and get out here, commit for a kill and get back to safety. And player advantage in the poke mirror, Matt, is everything.
So the Falcons will ditch the Genji on D, so they will go to the Mei, as Mei has actually turned into a really popular pick from the top teams on this map, at least here at Champions Clash. And then Fielder will play the Baptiste. They'll combo that with the Lucio as Hanbin stays on the D.Va. What does Crazy Raccoon do? 2:53 in the time bank there for Falcons, so Crazy Raccoon, they gotta fly.
Got every reason to consider Sigma as a reasonable option now. The D.Va combo, though, causes some problems. I cannot believe we're coming out the Zarya. Okay. Hanbin has no way to mitigate the damage that Max can provide with his left clicks, and the bubbles honestly get a ton of value when you have a Genji to charge forward with it.
With how aggressive that Chorong likes to play as well, you see it there on the Lucio. Just send him into the mix, and you want to create space. There is no way that Hanbin is going to be able to stand there and go toe-to-toe with Max.
The jury is definitely out, though, about whether the Zarya is going to be the ticket to get them through the map. You can see Max is charged the heck up. Lip on the Cassidy as well. Such an interesting comp, but Baptiste is a great complement to this. Immortality Field plays really well with Zarya, buys her time to get those bubble cooldowns back up to keep her in the flat, keep her charged and ready to rumble. And Falcons respect this, but probably have to still feel like they have tons of opportunities to gain edges. Max so ignores the D.Va right now. See, Hanbin knows he's just going to get stripped down to his nuts and bolts every time he shows up in front of the Zarya.
Dude, they're the fully charged Zarya, just Proper. No way you're going to be able to live there, as they were using that Mei wall to try and keep Hanbin alive, separating him from the rest of the team. It's a filthy comp here from Crazy Raccoon off the rip.
It just would be something unbelievable. The Crazy Raccoon bring their pinch hitter in and win the Champions Clash on Zarya. I know I'm speaking a little bit too early, but Hanbin switching back. We have a good old-fashioned gentleman's duel on the front line, folks. Team Falcons and Crazy Raccoon happy to get their hands dirty.
I mean, at least in the games that we've cast, this is the first time we've seen Zarya all weekend. So this is, and you can hear by the crowd's reaction, this is not a regular occurrence here.
God, the mind games now. Trading bubbles in the front line, trying to deny charge from the enemy Zarya, trying to force the bubbles out. Shu picked up for Hanbin. If you're going to come with a king on the Zarya mirror, you best not miss. And Team Falcons look comfortable with this change of comp.
Well, so the bubbles are really good, obviously, for the Genji to get quite aggressive, but we talk about how tanky Mei is. I mean, just getting Mei there with Proper, with the bubble there from Hanbin. Good luck taking the Mei out, as now Falcons stabilize on D.
4 minutes 13 to play with. A great early thrust here for Crazy Raccoon, but obviously losing that previous fight. They've built up a Graviton surge. And Harman's got to be aware of this now. That's surely an ultimate that you're looking to track. Max has to back away now. Air Matrix will be thrown up in response for Crazy Raccoon. It's a little bit awkward. Shu's the only casualty though, so the attackers still have priority, still some tempo to work with now. And Harman's having to look back behind him. Everybody surrounding the Zarya, leaving Harman essentially for last. Crazy Raccoon back on the march again.
So they will continue to get the payload moving here. Are we gonna see this? Okay, so Stalker gonna go over to the Ashe here. So Ashe with a Genji still playing that Zarya in the mix. So obviously you're going to have that bubble for proper, potentially going in, finishing out some of that damage that Stalker is gonna be able to put down with dynamites.
Here's a blade coming on in. He says no sees a Zarya bubble stopping him to start with, but he still wants to go for it. Fielder's Immortality Field buys a little bit of time and results in a trade ultimately. Now though he goes down, Chiyu and Fielder both missing, and Lip now with the 6-shooter dishing out the deeps. Harman here is just going to be forced back. There's really no reason that he'd be able to hang. Crazy Raccoon, man, they are doing an insane job of pushing through this map. 4:25 to play. You notice here the Zarya perk choice appeared to be jump ups for Max, so just increasing the self knockback of the secondary fire. It's maybe not the most impactful perk, but those primary, those major perks do matter on Zarya.
It gives Zarya the access to be able to get some high ground, right? Increases that knock up there with the right click. There's a dynamite from Stalker to the high ground. Is Falcons, I think they feel like they know they need to dislodge Crazy Raccoon from this position.
Awkward though, Hanbin has to just basically turn his eyes to the sky and hope that Proper can make good use of the barrier, but it expires awfully quickly. Graviton Surge comes in. Hanbin, I think that is ridiculous. Able to pop that one away. Shu's Immortality Field is just not going to cut it. Max
they just used it to get Heesang.
Okay, they trade Genji, so look, they're going to come back in. The ring engaged with Crazy Raccoon. And I see the Air Matrix and think better of it. They got Hanbin though.
They
so
do
it
have the
does
player
give them an
advantage.
opportunity.
Yeah, so they're going to be able to get the payload moving here after this, right? They kind of wait for this Amp Matrix to wear down. But now, dude, Crazy Raccoon, you're going to be able to come in. You got this Deadeye Amp Matrix here in this open space towards the end of the map.
Max trending forward here. Falcons know they've had to give up a bit of space. Amplification Matrix at the ready here for Shu. Deadeye to clear some space as well. Stalker can't really peer into that sightline for the time being. Lip likely will only get a free reload, but it gives a little bit of extra card progress. Here comes Bob, though. Lip has to concede this space. Desperately, Shu's getting an Immortality Field down. It's cleared out, but he keeps his allies alive, crucially. And Max is ready to fight back in a moment's notice. Soundberry, though, popped by Falcons. They want to keep pushing up, but Proper overextends. He gets caught out. It ends up being a trade, though, off Genji's, and the spotter perks picked up by Max are going to be a supportive look here on the Zarya, but he's close to a grab lead. Hope to finish the round, but now Crazy Raccoon have fallen behind Falcons' time bank. Gio, though, might be down. Harbin, not long for this world, and buddy, there's a whole ass card there to touch.
2 minutes 17, I believe, on the clock now for Falcons. So you would did not have Zarya mirrors on your bingo card maybe coming into this one. So Zarya mirror matchup with some Ashe and Mei in the mix.
And if we get that again, the spotter perk taken there by Max means that the projector barrier instantly activates health regeneration and increases movement speed. So it's an amazing pair with a Genji.
Yeah.
Lets them be even more lethal as they get into the backline, or even just allows you to save
I would
a teammate
say
under
as well,
pressure.
the threat of Crazy Raccoon playing the Zarya, well, I would have actually said completely takes the D.Va off the table.
This is ballsy.
But they'll go with it. So this is pretty ballsy here for Falcons, because I would have assumed that knowing that the Crazy Raccoon played the Zarya right off the rip would have taken the D.Va off of the table on defense, because you would assume if they did it one time, they're going to do it again. This time, though, they actually combo it instead of like with a Sojourn. They actually go Genji Mei. So maybe they just want to play this with the D.Va even more aggressive.
At this point, the time bank difference is negligible. It just doesn't matter. It feels like we've reset the entire map after having reset the map pool already. Crazy Raccoon, though, will have to attack first, being 17 seconds behind in time bank, but instantly they show the Zarya. Instantly, Harbin has to turn tail. He's got to respect the fact that Max can ignore defense matrix.
I don't believe with this change, though, in terms of the damage dealers, that this is going to bother Crazy Raccoon that much. I think they will continue to play this Zarya willingly into the Diva. I mean, this time they actually use an Ashe, so a little bit more long-range poke.
This game is going to be predicated on Genji overextension.
Yeah.
It happened a lot in the previous round. And you see the Hanks and he's saying just gets a little bit too brazen. Sometimes getting a Zarya bubble can give you delusions of grandeur, make you think you can pull off more than you should, and it gets punished there.
On Stalker. 2 back-to-back at range. And yeah, also you have the Mei wall, right? Being able to kind of like, if the Genji goes in, right? Maybe dashes on in, gets a Zarya bubble. Now all of a sudden,
The Widow?
there is a Mei wall behind.
He's walking out the spawn.
Why
He's at
not?
the back.
Let's go for it.
We are rolling back the years. And it's pure fan service at this point. Lips Widow, legendary. But does he have a good sideline? Sorka does cop a hit in this really unfavored scenario for Mei, but you can walk up on the Widow. Perfect response. Falcons out the Genji in there, but Proper is going to be traded out. Shu's Immortality Field buys enough time, but once more is Hanbin. Sees the Baptiste in a slightly overextended position and punishes. 32 seconds left.
I was going to say, I don't think the Widow's the answer, so they will go Cassidy here. So Cassidy's going to give them a little bit more brawl potential, especially if the Falcons wants to get aggressive with this Mei Genji.
Stalker, he's hit so many of these right
He's been
clicks.
on fire, man.
That Blizzard is now virtually available for him. First ultimate to come online, well, he's played a little bit earlier. Can he make do with a Zarya bubble and a blade into the backline? He's got to get through the Immortality Field first.
Also, yeah, Matrix farming up here for Shu, right? You're going to have the Cassidy with that Ant Matrix.
That's a lot to work with, Matt. That's the win condition here for Crazy Raccoon to try and take this fight on a potential checkpoint. Here's the blade into the backline, but the Blizzard will go into the backline of Crazy Raccoon and T-Sang's blade. Oh, Fielder! Outside of an Immortality Field, can't make use of it, and T-Sang fights the whole backline with the blade. That's the opening you're looking for. That's the ticket for Crazy Raccoon. They'll own the checkpoint, and they're still online.
Yeah, the support separate there for Falcons is Chio had the rally rolling, and Fielder kind of goes inside, maybe trying to get a line of sight on some of the other members of Falcons, be able to provide some healing to them, but you end up losing both supports there. So Falcons now will have to battle back towards the card as we go into OT. Crazy Raccoon, they're end up with a sound barrier here, and they're also going to end up with this grab. So some big ultimates, like, can you get a grab maybe onto Proper? Yeah, can you catch him?
Defense Matrix though means you've got to be careful about how you use that ultimate. Deadeye buys some time, gets Max closer to that grab, but Proper is, he's itching to pull the blade, he's gone for it now. Instantly, bubble thrown onto Shu. Sound barrier as well, but it doesn't matter, it's still cut through. Stalker has the damage to deal with, the Immortality Field's down, but it's a trade. It's Shu on the back. It was always meant to be. Eventually, though, Sheep will fall. Falcons need Harmon to stay in the fight, and he gets a free remake here. Max has a bubble, throws it up. He's healthy, but not enough to stay in this. Now Harmon with a remake back on the card, forcing T-Sang away, and that'll be that. 52.35 meters, and an extra checkpoint earned in extra time for Crazy Raccoon is all they'll get.
It's a pretty decent push, though, all things considered, right? 2:17 going to be on the clock here for Falcons. I'm actually just more curious of what we see from Crazy Raccoon on defense, right? Do you come out with Zarya off the rip, right? Is there a comp that then you could see maybe take advantage of that Zarya that we could see Falcons go to on the offensive side? Or do we just end up in that bizarre Zarya head-to-head?
The issue for the defensive Zarya is that she can be just ignored if he doesn't have high charge. Circumvented,
This is safer.
the zero charge particle beam is really just a tickle to a Diva. No, it will be the Sigma look here, which makes sense. Are you kidding me?
It's all right, why not?
Oh boy, we are headed to the car wash, folks.
Look, this is
100%.
holding down this choke, though, is going to be very difficult for Team Falcons to push on through.
Oh, man, I hate that spot. We're in overtime, right? So perks are absolutely a factor here.
Yes.
You come out with them. So you can put the turret in a very
get
dirty
Maga
spot.
into this. So I was talking about maybe we end up seeing some Maga here on circuit. We've seen Maga into Sigma to kind of get around that shield, right?
Diva instead.
Okay, so
T-Sang turret goes down early. Crazy Raccoon trade their poke potential in for amazing defensive capacity in their backline, and they surge ahead instantly. Zork is the first pick. T-Sang starting to get busy with it. Little pick on Chio there, insult to injury, and that's the turret behind for the attackers.
It is so difficult to deal with, and that is a huge fight win that basically takes any advantage that Falcons had in terms of that time bank, that really early one. 17 seconds ahead, off the table. Okay, why not?
I can't believe it. The Reinhardt here for Hanbin. That's a reinforced get up on his feet. It's getting real here, folks. Falcons now move up. They've got the mobile shield. Max instantly respects it, but the TP's going to make this weird. Accretion blocks entirely. Hanbin shrugs that off quite happily. Now Max has to worry about everybody surrounding him. As Shu going down, Proper was able to get in and get rid of the Baptiste. 1 minute 18 left, but the damage isn't there for the defenders. Now Limp's out of the game as well, and Team Falcons have come up with the answer for now.
Is it Hottie in the London Spitfire out there? Or is that Team Falcons? We get the Hanbin Reinhardt
It's
here,
just fan service.
using the sim to get past that Sigma shield, and then in combination with the Mei, being able to brawl out. He's saying going over to the far. There is no response really outside of Fielder here.
Okay, he's saying good response here. Not much you can really do about it. Yeah, the BAP can shoot it, but it's really not enough to work with. 45 seconds left here for Falcons, but they've got their support ultimates online. Here's the sim ball now. Crazy Raccoon by a lot of space. Hanbin's shield gets chewed through there by Lip, and it's easy for Crazy Raccoon to reassert themselves defensively on the map. Lippy wants to TP forward and stagger this out longer. Team Falcons have one more chance with 2 support ultimates to stay in the map, and they're switching. Widowmaker and Diva come out.
And now it's a blizzard from Stalker, so that gets absolutely nothing here. As now it is just desperation to get back towards that payload. Crazy Raccoon, they're backing up. They want to get a fight at this choke.
Max respects it. Gravitic Flux could be big. Normally it's easy to dodge, but Falcons have to play on the card. It could force a Charlie Niner. TP behind, respected, dealt with. Hanbin wants to step up here, but has to double back pretty instantly. Now the sim turrets are a problem. We're in overtime. Here's the sound barrier for both sides, but Falcons is earlier. How can they hang in here? Flux catches out the sim fielder, and he's then traded out. Proper is brought back down to earth. Gravity bites, folks. It hits hard. It's Crazy Raccoon now behind this defensive structure. Will take the glory. Emerging from the lower bracket, bloodshot eyes. Entrails of their foes still hanging. They will take what is theirs. Stay ahead in this legendary head-to-head and claim the title of Champions Clash victors.
They battle back all the way through the losers bracket. An epic match here against Falcons that really had it all. I mean, we started to see every different kind of composition you can think of. And Crazy Raccoon just too strong in the end this time.
We may never see a series of Overwatch quite like this one. It is neck and neck. We have a map pool reset. We go to Esperanca. Yeah, Crazy Raccoon take advantage there. They've got the Winston comp. And then we enter a bizarro world of Overwatch where, frankly, everything is made up and the points just don't matter. We start with poke compositions. There's a Diva there for Hanbin. But now Crazy Raccoon have done enough to be your champions in Hangzhou.
And this one has to sting for Falcons, but Crazy Raccoon, they reign supreme today.
I cannot believe we had a Zarya versus a Reinhardt.
Your champions, Crazy Raccoon.
一切的一切都来到了今天，让我们再一次恭喜他们。而在这一刻，这所有的时间、所有的时刻，都与在座的各位分享。 此时此刻有非常多的问题想要问到 Crazy Raccoon 的选手们，而我们先从我们的莫文教练开始。Yes， 所有的击掌有力、坚定。好，来，我们有一些问题，首先要问到的是莫文教练。上次你们在国际赛从败者组突围与 Falcons 打决赛的过程当中，你们是输掉了那场比赛，但今天你们获胜了。莫文教练告诉我，这一次你们有什么不同？
Alright, before we go on, guys, I want you guys to move up a little bit more. 자, 트로피 옆으로 서주시면 되고요. 두 분은 앞쪽으로 좀 더 나오시면 됩니다. 두 분만 뒤쪽에 이렇게 서 있으시면 되고요. 네, 자, alright. First question goes to Coach Moon. Fantastic job today. Last time you fought your way out of the lower bracket on the international stage to fight Falcons, you guys lost, but this time you guys won. What was different? 자, 저번에 국제 토너먼트라고 해야 될까요? 이제 팔콘과의 경기 스톡홀름에서 있었는데 그때는 패배를 했고 이번에는 우승을 하시게 되셨습니다. 어떤 다른 점이 있으셨나요?
그때는 메타 차이가 있었고 지금은 뱀픽이 있기 때문에 네, 저희가 이기지 않았나 싶습니다.
I feel like last time that we played in Stockholm, that was the international stage, there was a meta difference. But this time around, there's fan pick, and I feel like that played a huge part for the crazy Raccoons.
上一次的国际大赛在斯德哥尔摩，我知道那个时候我们的版本可能有些差异，而现在我们有了ban pick 系统，这更加有利于我们，帮助我们获得了本场比赛的胜利。第二个问题想要问到的是 Leap 选手，你在 OWL 的时候，你曾经为了上海龙之队而战，而现在你在中国的观众面前再次成为了冠军，现在感觉如何呢？
Lip, you were a Shanghai Dragons during the Overwatch League. Now you are a champion in front of the Chinese crowd. How does it feel? 자, 립 선수는 오버워치 리그 때 상하이 드래곤즈랑 있으셨죠. 굉장한 성적을 많이 이루셨고 오늘은 또 다시 중국 팬들 앞에서 우승을 한 번 더 하게 되셨습니다. 소감 한 말씀 부탁드릴게요.
오랜만에 고향으로 돌아온 것 같아서 기쁘고 거기서 우승까지 더해서 기분이 정말 좋습니다.
It definitely feels great. I feel like I am back at home and I'm happy that I won it all in China. Thank you guys so much.
当然感觉很好了，我感觉我回家了，非常的开心能够拿到本场比赛的胜利。让我们再一次以热烈掌声恭喜 Crazy Raccoon！ 现在非常荣幸由我为大家揭晓本次2025年杭州全球冠军赛的整个赛程的 FFAT。
It's time to reveal our tournament MVP for Champions Clash.
喊出他的名字。整个赛程，我们的 Final MVP 给到的是树。
It's you! Let's go! Make some noise, everybody! 수 선수 앞으로 나와주세요. 수 선수 앞으로 나와주세요. 앞으로 나와주세요. 옆으로 서주세요. 네.
树选手，恭喜你成为了2025年全球冠军赛的 FMVP。你现在有什么话想对你的粉丝们说的吗？
First of all, Shu, big congratulations on being the most valuable player in the 2025 Champions Clash. Anything you want to say to your fans? 자, 오늘 MVP 받으시고 너무나 축하드리면서 팬분들에게 한 말씀 부탁드리겠습니다.
오늘 조금 개인적으로 실수가 좀 많아가지고 좀 아쉬웠는데 나름 잘한 것 같아가지고 기분 좋고 저번에 MVP 받았을 때 하고 싶은 말이 있었는데 말을 못했는데 我爱你 China fan 谢谢
I felt like I did make a lot of mistakes today, but overall, I think I did a fantastic job. So I'm very happy about that. And last time when I got MVP last time, I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. So I want to say it right now. Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you, Chinese fans.
我觉得在整个赛程当中，我有很多的失误，非常的可惜，但是我还是做到了。我做了一些非常不错的表现，能够获得本场比赛的胜利。上一次我拿到 MVP 的时候，我有些话没有来得及向全场的观众朋友们，没有来得及向我的粉丝说，我爱你们，来自中国的粉丝。
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for your Hangzhou 2025 champions, Crazy Raccoon!
Time, as it always seems to be in this great game, is a flat circle. What an incredible walk back through some of the metas of yesteryear,
Yeah.
as well as some entirely new ones. Reinhardt versus Zarya for all the marbles here. An incredible showing by Crazy Raccoon, a well-deserved trophy.
And Shu just keeps racking up these MVPs, man. It feels like every time we get on the international stage, he just displays another level of support play that's unmatched by anybody.
And again, the spectacle here, of course, in Hangzhou is for all to see. Overwatch Esports are very much alive, and a great rivalry to grace the stage to close us out. It is, as it always has been, a real honor to bring you this incredible final. We'll be seeing you guys soon. We're going to head to the desk, but for now, it's Uber and Mr. X signing off.